The moment Harper Lane's fist connected with nothing but air, she knew she'd made a terrible mistake. In front of 500 employees and rolling cameras, the MMA champion CEO had just challenged a janitor to spar, expecting an easy demonstration of power. But as Colton Hayes effortlessly redirected her attack, sending her sprawling onto the mat in 9 seconds flat, the laughter died. The phones kept recording, and somewhere in that stunned silence, a secret 12 years buried was about to explode into a $10 million fight that would change everything. Stay with me until the end of this incredible story and drop a comment about which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this tale travels. The morning had started like any other at Apex Industries headquarters in downtown Manhattan. The October sun filtered through the 40-foot glass atrium, casting geometric shadows across the Italian marble floors that Colton Hayes had been methodically cleaning since 5 a.m. His weathered hands moved the industrial mop in practiced strokes, the rhythm as familiar as breathing. At 38, Colton had perfected the art of being invisible, just another fixture in the corporate landscape, no different from the potted plants or water coolers that dotted each floor. "Dad, you forgot your lunch again." The voice made Colton turn. His 13-year-old son Evan stood in the lobby, school backpack slung over one shoulder, holding up a brown paper bag. The boy's dark hair fell into his eyes that matched his father's exact shade of green, though they hadn't yet learned to hide their emotions the way Colton's had. "You're going to be late for school," Colton said softly, abandoning his mop to walk over. He noticed the tear in Evan's jacket sleeve, mentally calculating if they could afford a new one this month. Probably not until after rent. "It's on my way," Evan shrugged, handing over the bag. "Besides, you need to eat. You're getting too skinny." Colton ruffled his son's hair, a gesture that Evan pretended to hate, but secretly loved. "Get going, soldier. Education first, remember." Yeah, the key to everything I know." Evan gave a mock salute, then hesitated. "Dad, Tommy Chen said his father saw you on TV once. Said you used to be somebody important. Is that true?" The question hung in the air like a held breath. Colton's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "The only important thing I've ever been is your father. Now go before Principal Martinez marks you tardy again." Yeah, Evan studied his father's face for a moment longer, searching for something he couldn't quite name, then nodded and jogged toward the exit. Colton watched until his son disappeared around the corner, then returned to his mop and bucket. The past was a luxury he couldn't afford to indulge. By 10 a.m., the atrium had transformed into a hive of activity. Apex Industries was celebrating its record quarterly earnings, and CEO Harper Lane had promised a special demonstration for the staff. Employees gathered in concentric circles around a professional-grade MMA mat that had been installed in the center of the space. The excitement was palpable. Their CEO wasn't just any executive. She was Harper "Hurricane" Lane, former UFC champion, the woman who'd walked away from fighting at her peak to conquer the business world instead. Colton tried to maneuver his cleaning cart around the crowd, but the press of bodies made it impossible. He'd have to wait until the demonstration was over. He found a spot near a marble pillar, partially hidden, but with a clear view of the mat. Old habits died hard. Always know your exits, always watch for threats, even when the only danger was being noticed. Harper Lane emerged from the executive elevator like a warrior entering an arena. At 35, she moved with the fluid confidence of someone who had never met a challenge she couldn't overcome. Her athletic frame was wrapped in a custom-tailored suit that probably cost more than Colton made in 3 months. But when she stepped onto the mat and shed the jacket, revealing a fitted athletic shirt underneath, she transformed. This wasn't Harper Lane, CEO. This was Hurricane Lane, the fighter who'd submitted 12 opponents in a row before retiring undefeated. "Good morning, Apex family," her voice carried without a microphone trained to project over roaring crowds. "As you know, I believe in leading by example. In business as in fighting, we must always be ready for the unexpected. We must never become complacent." The crowd murmured agreement, phones already out and recording. "Today, I want to demonstrate the importance of maintaining your edge no matter how successful you become." Harper's eyes swept the crowd, predatory and calculating. "I need a volunteer. Someone who thinks they can last 30 seconds with me." Nervous laughter rippled through the employees. A few younger men in suits shuffled their feet, caught between the desire to impress the boss and the very real fear of embarrassment. Harper's reputation wasn't just corporate mythology, there were videos online of her demolishing professional fighters. "Come on," Harper teased, bouncing lightly on the balls of her feet. "I promise I'll go easy. Consider it a team-building exercise." That's when her gaze landed on Colton. The moment stretched like a taut wire. Harper's expression shifted, something flickering behind her eyes, recognition. No, that was impossible. They'd never met. Colton had made sure of that when he took this job 18 months ago. He'd checked the executive schedules, learned Harper's patterns, always ensuring their paths never crossed. "You," Harper said, pointing directly at him, "the gentleman by the pillar." Every head in the atrium turned. Colton felt the weight of 500 stairs, the uncomfortable heat of sudden visibility. He shook his head slightly, taking a step backward. "Oh, come on." Harper's smile was sharp as a blade. "Don't be shy. What's your name?" "I'm Maintenance, ma'am," Colton said quietly, his voice barely carrying. "I should get back to work." "Maintenance," Harper's eyebrows rose. "Perfect. You're probably the only person here who does actual physical work. That makes you the ideal candidate." She gestured to the mat. "Unless you're afraid," the word hung in the air like a challenge. Colton saw the calculation in her eyes. She knew exactly what she was doing, which buttons to push. The crowd was already murmuring, some people snickering. He heard someone whisper, "Poor janitor's about to get destroyed." "I really should," Colton began. "I'll make it worth your while," Harper interrupted. $1,000 for 30 seconds. That's $33 per second. Probably more than you make in a day, right? The casual cruelty of the comment made something flicker in Colton's chest. Not anger, he'd burned through his lifetime supply of that years ago. Something else. Something he'd buried beneath routines and responsibilities and the careful construction of an ordinary life. "Ma'am, I appreciate the offer, but—" "5,000, Harper said. The crowd gasped. $5,000 for 30 seconds, cash, today. Colton thought of Evan's torn jacket, the overdue electric bill, the parent-teacher conference next week where he'd have to explain again why he couldn't afford the school's recommended tutoring program. $5,000 would change everything for the next few months. "The mat might get damaged," he said quietly. "From my work boots." Harper's smile widened. "Then take them off." The crowd parted as Colton moved forward, each step feeling like a countdown to something irreversible. He set down his lunch bag, the one Evan had brought, and began unlacing his boots with methodical precision. His movements were unhurried, controlled. A few people laughed at his mismatched socks, one black, one navy blue. He didn't react. "What's your name?" Harper asked again as he stepped onto the mat. "Colton." "Well, Colton, have you ever been in a fight before?" The question almost made him laugh. Instead, he simply said, "A few." "Good. Then you know the rules. No strikes to the groin, no eye gouging, no biting. Everything else is fair game. If you can last 30 seconds, the money's yours. If you tap out or I put you down for a 3 count, you lose." "Deal." Colton nodded. "Someone time this," Harper called out, settling into a fighter's stance. "Ready when you are, janitor." The word was meant to diminish, to remind everyone of the hierarchy. Colton let it wash over him like water. He'd been called worse by better. Someone yelled, "Start," and Harper moved. She came in fast, testing with a quick jab combination that would have dropped most amateur fighters. Colton shifted his weight, letting the punches sail past his movement, so minimal it looked almost accidental. Harper's eyes narrowed. She pressed forward with a leg kick that had ended professional fights. Colton checked it with his shin, the impact resonating through the atrium with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a tree. The crowd winced. Harper's expression shifted from amused to interested. "You've had some training," she said, circling him like a shark. Colton said nothing, keeping his hands low, his posture deliberately unthreatening. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to survive 30 seconds and collect money for his son. Nothing more. Harper feinted high and shot for a takedown, a double leg that had never failed her in competition. Her technique was flawless, explosive, perfectly timed. Colton sprawled. The defensive movement was pure muscle memory, his hips dropping back, legs spreading wide, hands controlling Harper's head and shoulder. It was the kind of sprawl that took years to perfect, the kind that separated amateurs from professionals. For a moment, Harper was stuck, her takedown completely neutralized. The crowd had gone silent. Harper tried to chain into a single leg. Colton's balance shifted, his weight distribution adjusting in microscopic increments that kept him upright, stable, unmovable. His breathing hadn't even changed. "Who are you?" Harper hissed through gritted teeth, abandoning the takedown attempt and creating distance. "Nobody," Colton replied quietly. "Just need the money." Something flashed in Harper's eyes, frustration maybe, or wounded pride. She had a reputation to maintain, a legend to protect. She couldn't let some janitor make her look foolish in front of her entire company. She came in harder this time, throwing combinations with serious intent. Liver shot head kick, spinning back fist techniques that had dropped champions. Colton moved like water, never quite where her strikes expected him to be. He wasn't fighting back, wasn't countering, just surviving with an economy of movement that was almost beautiful in its efficiency. 20 seconds, someone called out. Harper's frustration was becoming visible. She was Harper Lane. She was undefeated. She was not going to lose $5,000 to a janitor who wouldn't even fight back. She threw a haymaker, a wild, angry punch that betrayed everything her training had taught her. That's when Colton made his decision. Instead of simply evading, he redirected. His hand came up, gently guiding Harper's punch past his head, while his foot swept behind her lead leg. It was Aikido, not MMA, a martial art focused on using an opponent's force against them. Harper's momentum carried her forward as her leg was swept. She hit the mat hard, the impact driving the air from her lungs. The timer went off. 30 seconds. But Colton wasn't done. As Harper fell, he followed her down, his movement flowing like water finding its path. His hand was already in position, and before Harper could process what was happening, she was caught in a chokehold. Specifically, a rear naked choke perfectly applied. Her neck cradled in the crook of his elbow. The entire sequence had taken less than 2 seconds. The atrium erupted. People were screaming, phones capturing every angle. Harper's hands clawed at Colton's arm, but the choke was locked in with technical perfection. Her legs kicked, searching for leverage that wasn't there. Then, as suddenly as he'd applied it, Colton released the hold. He stood up, stepped back, and offered Harper his hand. She lay on the mat for a moment, gasping, her face flushed with exertion, and something else, humiliation, rage, disbelief. When she looked up at Colton, really looked at him for the first time, her expression changed. The color drained from her face. "No," she whispered so quietly, only Colton could hear. "It can't be." Colton's expression remained neutral. "The 30 seconds is up. I'll take the check if that's acceptable. Or cash, like you said." Harper scrambled to her feet without taking his offered hand. The crowd was buzzing, phones still recording the moment, already being uploaded to social media. Harper's perfect record, her undefeated status, had just been shattered by a janitor in mismatched socks. "Everyone back to work!" Harper barked, her CEO voice cracking like a whip. "Show's over." But it wasn't over. Everyone knew it. The videos were already spreading. The mighty Harper Lane taken down by maintenance staff. It would be viral within the hour. Harper grabbed Colton's arm as he bent to put his boots back on. "We need to talk. Now, private." "I need to get back to work," Colton said calmly, lacing up his boots with the same methodical precision as before. "That wasn't a request." Harper's voice was low, dangerous. "My office. 10 minutes." She stormed off toward the executive elevator, leaving Colton standing on the mat. He picked up his lunch bag, the one Evan had brought, and noticed his hands were trembling slightly. Not from exertion or fear, but from something else. Something he'd thought he'd successfully buried. The ghost of who he used to be. Marcus Webb, Harper's chief operating officer, appeared at Colton's elbow. Marcus was everything Colton wasn't: smooth, polished, radiating the kind of confidence that came from never having faced real adversity. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. "That was quite the show," Marcus said, his tone suggesting he found the whole thing distasteful. "Where did maintenance learn to fight like that?" "Here and there," Colton replied, starting to push his cleaning cart away from the mat. "Here and there," Marcus repeated, chuckling. "You just humiliated the CEO in front of the entire company, and that's all you have to say." Colton stopped, turned to face Marcus directly. For just a moment, he let the mask slip. Marcus saw something in Colton's eyes that made him take an involuntary step backward, a glimpse of something dangerous, something that had been caged but never tamed. "I did what she asked," Colton said quietly. 30 seconds. Nothing more. She asked you to last 30 seconds, not to what defend myself when she tried to hurt me. Colton's voice remained level, but there was steel beneath the calm. She's the one who escalated. I just ended it without anyone getting hurt. Marcus's jaw worked like he was chewing on words he wanted to spit out. Finally, he said, "You don't know who you're messing with. Harper Lane doesn't forget, and she doesn't forgive." "Then we have something in common," Colton said, resuming his path with the cleaning cart. He made it 3 steps before Marcus called out, "She knows who you are, doesn't she? That's why she really called you up there." Colton didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge the question. He just kept pushing his cart, the squeaky wheel echoing through the atrium like a countdown to something inevitable. 10 minutes later, Colton stood outside Harper's office on the 40th floor. He'd never been this high in the building before. The executive level was a different world, all glass and chrome and abstract art that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime. Harper's assistant, a nervous-looking young man named David, gestured for him to go in. Harper's office was the size of most apartments, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Manhattan. She stood with her back to him, still in her workout clothes, an ice pack pressed to her neck where the choke had been applied. "Close the door," she said without turning around. Colton did, then waited. He'd learned long ago that silence was often more powerful than words. 12 years, Harper finally said, turning to face him. 12 fucking years and you show up here in my building cleaning my floors. "I needed a job," Colton said simply. "This one pays well enough and provides health insurance for my son." "Your son," Harper laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Does he know what his father did? Does he know about Jimmy?" The name hit Colton like a physical blow, but he didn't let it show. "My son knows I'm a janitor who loves him. That's all he needs to know." "A janitor?" Harper moved closer, her eyes searching his face. "Colton Ghost Hayes, the man who ended Jimmy Reeves' career, the man who put my teammate, my friend, in a wheelchair. That's not what happened." "No. Then why did you disappear? Why did you run if you weren't guilty?" Colton met her gaze steadily. "Because staying would have meant more people getting hurt. Because sometimes the truth is less important than perception. Because I had a son to raise and he didn't need to grow up with that shadow." "Bullshit." Harper's hands clenched into fists. "You ran because you were guilty. Because you knew what you'd done. Jimmy was 23 years old. He had his whole career ahead of him. And you—" "I saved his life," Colton interrupted, his voice cutting through her anger like a blade through silk. "But you weren't there that night. You only know what people told you, what people wanted you to believe." Harper's eyes narrowed. "Then tell me. Make me understand how breaking a man's spine was saving his life." "You don't want to understand. You want someone to blame. You've wanted it for 12 years and now you've found me." Colton moved toward the door. "I'll submit my resignation today. You won't see me again." "No." The word stopped him with his hand on the door handle. "You don't get to run again," Harper said. "Not this time. You want to know what I think? I think you're a coward. I think you've been hiding behind that mop and bucket, pretending to be nobody because you can't face what you did." Colton turned back to her, and for the first time Harper saw emotion crack through his careful control. "You have no idea what I've faced. What I face every day? What it costs to be nobody when you used to be—" He stopped himself, jaw clenching. "When you used to be somebody," Harper finished. "The ghost, the prodigy who could have been the greatest fighter of his generation. Yeah, I know all about you, Colton. I studied you. Every fight, every move, every technique. You were my hero once, before I knew what you really were. And what am I? A killer who got lucky. Jimmy survived barely, but you killed his dreams, his future, everything he worked for." Colton was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, dangerous. "Jimmy Reeves was using steroids, amphetamines, cocaine. The night of our fight, he was so high he couldn't feel pain, couldn't recognize damage. He would have fought until he died in that ring. The referee wouldn't stop it. Jimmy's corner had paid him off. His coach kept sending him back out even though his skull was fractured. So yes, I ended it. I ended it the only way I could that would stop the fight permanently without killing him. You're lying. His toxicology report proved otherwise. But that report was buried because too many important people had too much money riding on Jimmy being clean. A tragic accident was better for business than a drug scandal. Colton's eyes were hard as flint. I took the blame because someone had to. Because Jimmy's family needed the insurance money. Because the truth would have destroyed more lives than the lie. Harper stared at him, her worldview tilting on its axis. If that's true, why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you defend yourself? To whom? The media, who had already convicted me. The fans who wanted blood. The commission that was complicit in the cover-up. Colton shook his head. I had a 2-year-old son and a wife dying of cancer. I didn't have the luxury of fighting for my reputation. I needed to be present. I needed to be a father, so I became nobody. I became invisible. Until today. The office fell silent except for the distant hum of the city far below. Harper sank into her desk chair, the fight suddenly gone out of her. The video's already viral, she said quietly. 3 million views in the last hour. CEO gets destroyed by janitor. That's the headline. I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention. Harper laughed bitterly. Wasn't it the perfect revenge? Humiliate me in front of everyone. If I wanted revenge, I've had 18 months to take it. I've been in this building invisible watching you rise, watching you succeed. I could have destroyed you a dozen different ways if that's what I wanted. Colton moved back toward the door. I just wanted to earn money for my son. That's all I've ever wanted. Wait. Harper stood up. The 5,000. You earned it. She pulled out her phone, started tapping. What's your account information? Keep it. What? Keep your money. I don't want it. Not like this. Colton opened the door. I'll clean out my locker and be gone within the hour. Colton, wait. But he was already gone, walking down the hallway with the same steady pace he used to push his cleaning cart. Harper stood in her doorway, watching him disappear around the corner, feeling like she'd just lost a fight she didn't even know she was in. David, her assistant, approached nervously. Ms. Lane, you have the board meeting in 15 minutes about the Singapore expansion. Harper didn't respond. She was looking at her phone at the video that was now approaching 5 million views, but she wasn't watching herself get taken down. She was watching Colton's face. The careful control, the deliberate restraint the moment when he could have really hurt her, but chose not to. Cancel it, she said suddenly. I'm sorry. Cancel the meeting. Cancel everything for the rest of the day. She went back into her office, her mind racing. And David, I need you to find everything you can about Colton Hayes. Everything. I don't care how deep you have to dig or how much it costs. Yes, ma'am. May I ask why? Harper was quiet for a moment, still staring at the video. Because I think I've been wrong about something for 12 years. And if I have, then I've just made a terrible mistake. Meanwhile, Colton was in the basement cleaning out his locker. It didn't take long, he'd never kept much there. A change of clothes, a few pictures of Evan, a worn paperback book he read during lunch breaks. He was folding his uniform when his phone buzzed. It was a text from Evan. Dad? There's a video of you fighting some lady going around school. Everyone's seeing it. Is that really you? Before Colton could respond, another text came through. Tommy Chen says his dad was right. You were somebody important. Why didn't you tell me? Then another kids are saying you're a badass. Is that true? And finally, are you in trouble? Are we going to have to move again? That last question hit Colton like a punch to the gut. Again. How many times had they moved? How many fresh starts that weren't really fresh, just the same, hiding in a different place? He texted back. Everything's fine. We'll talk when you get home. Love you. But everything wasn't fine. The carefully constructed anonymity he'd built was crumbling. By tomorrow, everyone would know who he was. The real question was, what would they do with that knowledge? His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, then thought it might be the school. Hello? Is this Colton Hayes? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. Who's asking? My name is Richard Steinberg. I'm a sports promoter. I've just seen the video of you and Ms. Lane. I have a proposition that I think you'll find very interesting. Not interested. Colton started to hang up. $10 million. Colton paused. What? A professional fight. You versus Harper Lane. $10 million purse winner takes all. The event would benefit veterans' charities. Given the viral nature of today's incident, I guarantee we could sell out Madison Square Garden. I said I'm not interested. Mr. Hayes, I know who you are. I know what happened 12 years ago. This is your chance to tell your side of the story, to clear your name, and to secure your son's future. The mention of Evan made Colton's grip tighten on the phone. Don't talk about my son. I apologize. But think about it. $10 million. Enough to pay for college, buy a house, never worry about money again. All for one fight, one chance to show the world who Colton Ghost Hayes really is. The answer is no. I'll give you 48 hours to reconsider. My number will be in your phone. Think about your son, Mr. Hayes. Think about what that money could mean for his future. The line went dead. Colton stood in the empty locker room holding his phone, feeling the weight of the past crushing down on him. 12 years of running, of hiding, of being nobody. And now in 9 seconds of redirected violence, it was all unraveling. He finished packing his things and headed for the exit. As he passed through the lobby, he saw a crowd gathered around someone's phone watching the video again. They fell silent as he passed, staring at him with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. The invisible man suddenly painfully visible. Outside, the October air was sharp with the promise of winter. Colton pulled out his phone and called the only person he could trust. Ray, it's me. Yeah, I know you've seen it. Everyone's seen it. He paused, listening. No, I'm not taking the fight. I'm done with that life. I just need you to watch Evan for a few days. Things might get complicated. Ray Martinez had been Colton's trainer once, back when he'd had a future in fighting. Now he ran a small gym in Brooklyn, teaching kids how to defend themselves and stay out of trouble. He was one of the few people who knew the truth about what happened 12 years ago. Colt, you can't run from this anymore. Ray's gravelly voice carried through the phone. That video's opened a door you can't close. Harper Lane's not going to let this go. You embarrassed her. I didn't mean to. Doesn't matter what you meant. What matters is what happens next. And brother, if you don't control the narrative, someone else will. They'll paint you as the villain again. Is that what you want Evan to see? Colton was quiet, watching the city move around him. Everyone focused on their phones, their lives, their problems. For 12 years, he'd been part of that anonymous flow. Now he was a disruption, a story, a viral moment that wouldn't fade. There's something else, Ray said. I got a call about an hour ago. Marcus Webb, Harper's COO. He was asking questions about you, about the old days, about Jimmy. What did you tell him? Nothing. But Colt, this guy's got resources. He's going to dig. And there are people who know things, people who might talk for the right price. Colton closed his eyes, feeling the walls closing in. What do you think I should do? I think you should consider the fight. Not for the money, though God knows you could use it, but for the chance to control your own story. To show Evan who his father really is, not who the world says you are. I'm not a fighter anymore, Ray. I'm a janitor, a father. That's it. You're a father who just took down an undefeated champion in 9 seconds. That's not nothing, brother. That's not nobody. After Colton hung up, he walked the 30 blocks to Evan's school. He needed to be there when his son got out, needed to explain before the rumors and speculation twisted the truth beyond recognition. But as he approached the school, he saw the crowd reporters, cameras, people with phones all aimed at the entrance. Someone spotted him. There he is, Colton Hayes! The mob surged toward him, shouting questions. Why did you challenge Harper Lane? Are you coming out of retirement? What really happened with Jimmy Reeves? Is it true you're taking the $10 million fight? Colton retreated, his heart racing. He couldn't get to Evan like this. The school day wasn't over yet, but when it was, his son would walk into this chaos. He pulled out his phone, called the school's office. This is Colton Hayes, Evan Hayes' father. There's a situation outside. Tell Mr. Hayes we're aware. We've already arranged for Evan to exit through the faculty parking lot. Vice Principal Morrison will drive him home. Thank you. Tell him I'll be there. Tell him everything's okay. But as Colton made his way back to their small apartment in Queens, he knew that was a lie. Nothing was okay. The past he'd buried had been exhumed in the most public way possible. And Harper Lane, the woman who'd hated him for 12 years without knowing the truth, now held his future in her hands. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. When he opened it, his blood ran cold. It was a photo of Evan at school taken from a distance. The message read, "Your boy looks just like you. Same eyes, same potential. Would be a shame if he followed in his father's footsteps, unless his father makes the right choice. Take the fight, Ghost, or we'll make sure everyone knows what really happened that night, including what you did to Jimmy's knee before the spine injury. The whole truth, not just the parts you've convinced yourself are noble." Colton deleted the message, but his hands were shaking. Someone knew. Someone who'd been there, who'd seen what happened in those final moments, the decision he'd made that haunted him more than anything else. The choice between letting Jimmy die in the ring or destroying his body to save his life. He made it to the apartment building just as Vice Principal Morrison's car pulled up. Evan jumped out his face, a mixture of confusion and excitement. "Dad, did you see you're famous? Everyone's talking about you." Colton knelt down, pulling his son into a hug. "We need to talk, soldier. There are things I should have told you a long time ago." They went inside up 3 flights of stairs to their 2-bedroom apartment. It was small but clean, everything in its place. Colton had learned that order was a form of control, and control was how you survived. Evan threw his backpack on the couch and turned to his father, eyes bright with curiosity. "So it's true you were a fighter, like a real fighter?" Colton sat down, gesturing for Evan to join him. "Yes. A long time ago, before you were born, I was a professional fighter. I was good at it." "Good, Dad, I looked you up. You were undefeated. 15 wins, 15 knockouts. They called you the Ghost." Evan's excitement dimmed slightly. "But then something happened. The websites all say you did something bad, that you hurt someone on purpose." "It's complicated, Evan. I'm 13, not 3. I can handle complicated." Colton looked at his son, really looked at him. When had he gotten so tall? When had his voice started changing? How much of his childhood had Colton missed while trying to protect him from the past? "There was a fight," Colton began slowly. "My last fight, against a man named Jimmy Reeves. Something went wrong. He got hurt badly, paralyzed. Everyone blamed me." "Did you do it on purpose?" "No, but I did hurt him. I had to make a choice between letting him die or stopping him in a way that would make sure he couldn't continue. I chose to stop him." "So you saved his life?" "It's not that simple. The way I stopped him, the technique I used, it ended his career, his dreams, everything he'd worked for. Some people think that's worse than dying." Evan was quiet for a moment, processing. Then he asked, "Is that why we move so much? Why you never talk about Mom? Why you work as a janitor, even though you could probably be a coach or trainer or something?" The questions hit Colton in rapid succession, each one a small wound. "Yes, to all of that. I wanted to give you a normal life, a safe life, away from all of that. But it found us anyway." "Yeah," Colton admitted. "It did." "So what happens now?" Before Colton could answer, there was a knock at the door. They both froze. Nobody ever knocked on their door. Nobody was supposed to know where they lived. Colton moved Evan behind him and approached the door cautiously. "Who is it?" "Mr. Hayes. My name is Sarah Kim. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'd like to talk to you about telling your story." "Not interested." Colton started to move away from the door. "I have information about that night. Security footage that was supposedly destroyed. It shows what really happened in Jimmy's corner between rounds. It shows his coach injecting him with something." Colton stopped. That footage could change everything. It could prove what he'd been saying for 12 years. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" An envelope slid under the door. Inside was a single photograph, grainy but clear enough. It showed Jimmy's corner, his coach holding a syringe, the referee, looking away, money-changing hands in the background. "This is just one frame," Sarah Kim said through the door. "I have the whole video, but I need your cooperation, your side of the story, the truth." Evan picked up the photo, studied it. "Dad, this could fix everything. You could clear your name." Colton looked at his son, at the hope in his eyes. For 12 years, he'd carried the weight of being the villain in everyone's story. Maybe it was time to tell his own, Give me your card, he said through the door. I'll think about it. A business card slid under. Colton picked it up, noticed the production company was legitimate, well known for serious documentaries. There's something else, Sarah Kim said. Harper Lane's people reached out to me an hour ago. She wants to tell her side of the story too, about today, about the past, about Jimmy. If you don't participate, she'll control the narrative. Again. After she left, Colton and Evan sat in silence. Finally, Evan said, "You should do it. The documentary, the fight, all of it." Evan, "No, Dad, listen. My whole life you've been hiding. We've been hiding. I didn't even know who you really were until today. And you know what? I'm proud of you. Not because you were some great fighter, but because you gave that up to raise me. Because you took the blame to protect people. Because even today when that woman tried to hurt you, you were gentle. You stopped her without really hurting her." Colton felt tears threatening push them back. "You don't understand what you're asking. If I do this, if I step back into that world, everything changes. The quiet life we've built was never real," Evan interrupted. "It was just hiding. And I'm tired of hiding, Dad. I'm tired of being the kid whose father is nobody. I want them to know who you really are. I want to know who you really are." Colton's phone rang. Harper's name on the screen. He answered. "Ms. Lane, we need to meet, tonight. Neutral ground. There's a coffee shop on 42nd and Lex. 1 hour." "I don't think that's a good idea. I know about the threatening text, about the photo of Evan. Marcus sent it. He's got his own agenda, his own secrets from that night. If we don't handle this correctly, we're both going to burn, and your son's going to get caught in the fire." Colton looked at Evan, who was watching him intently. 1 hour. "And Colton, I'm sorry, for today, for everything. I didn't know." "Nobody ever does," he said, and hung up. The coffee shop on 42nd and Lexington was nearly empty when Colton arrived 15 minutes early out of habit. He chose a corner booth with clear sight lines to both exits, ordered black coffee he didn't intend to drink, and waited. The place smelled of burnt espresso and industrial cleaner, reminding him of countless late-night diners where fighters would gather after training, telling stories about glory days that probably never existed the way they remembered them. Harper arrived exactly on time, having traded her athletic wear for jeans and a Yankees cap pulled low. She slid into the booth across from him, and for a moment they just stared at each other, two fighters sizing up an opponent, except neither was sure if they were enemies anymore. "You look different," Harper said finally, "without the janitor uniform." "You look different without 500 employees watching," Colton replied. She almost smiled at that, then caught herself. "I've spent the last 3 hours reading everything I could find about you. The real stuff, not the tabloid garbage. Ray Martinez gave me an earful about what really happened that night. Ray talks too much. Ray cares about you, said you were the most talented fighter he ever trained and the most frustrating, said you could have been champion of the world if you hadn't walked away. Could have been doesn't pay rent or raise children?" Harper pulled out her phone, showed him a screenshot. The video of their encounter now had 27 million views. "This does, though. You're trending worldwide. The ghost returns. That's what they're calling it." "I didn't return. I was just trying to earn $5,000. Which you refused to take." "It didn't feel right. Not after—" Colton trailed off, looking out the window at the river of yellow cabs flowing past. "After you realized I didn't know the truth," Harper finished. "That I'd spent 12 years hating you for something you didn't do. At least not the way I thought you did." She reached into her bag, pulled out a manila envelope thick with documents. "Marcus has been busy. He's compiled everything: police reports, medical records, witness statements. But there are inconsistencies, things that don't add up, like why Jimmy's toxicology report was sealed, why 3 members of the boxing commission resigned the week after your fight, why you never had a hearing. None of that matters now. It matters to your son. I saw his face in some of the crowd footage from outside his school. He looked proud, Colton, proud and confused and a little scared. That's a hell of a burden for a 13-year-old. Colton's jaw tightened. Don't talk about my son. I'm trying to help. Like you helped today, calling me out in front of everyone, making me a spectacle. Harper was quiet for a moment, stirring sugar into her coffee with deliberate slowness. I recognized you the moment I saw you by that pillar. I've known you worked in my building for 3 months. Colton straightened. What? Security flagged you during a routine background check. They brought it to Marcus. Marcus brought it to me. The ghost hiding in plain sight, pushing a mop in my building. She met his eyes. I've walked past you a dozen times, watched you work, waited for you to say something, do something, acknowledge what happened. But you never did. You just kept being invisible. So today was what revenge? Today was supposed to be control. I thought if I could beat you publicly, it would finally close that chapter. Prove that you weren't the monster who destroyed my friend, just a man who could be defeated. She laughed bitterly. Instead, I proved the opposite. The way you moved, the restraint you showed, you could have hurt me badly. But you didn't. You were teaching, not fighting. I wasn't teaching. I was surviving. No, you were teaching. Every movement was a lesson. Use their force against them. Control without cruelty. Victory without vengeance. Harper leaned forward. That's not the philosophy of someone who'd deliberately destroy another fighter. Before Colton could respond, the coffee shop door chimed. Marcus Webb walked in, flanked by two men in expensive suits who had security written all over them. He spotted them immediately, his smile sharp as a blade. Well, well, the fighter and the janitor having coffee like old friends. He invited himself to sit, forcing Harper to slide over. Ms. Lane, the board is concerned about today's incident. The stock price has dropped 3 points. The board can wait, Harper said coldly. Actually, they can't. Marcus pulled out a tablet, showed them a news article. Someone leaked the story about Jimmy Reeves, about the connection between you, him, and our friend here. They're calling for an investigation, saying you staged today's fight for publicity. That's ridiculous. Is it a viral video worth millions in free advertising? A planned rematch worth even more? Marcus's eyes glittered. Unless, of course, Mr. Hayes here agrees to a simple narrative. He attacked you unprovoked. You defended yourself. He's been terminated for workplace violence. Clean Simple protects the company. I'm not lying for you, Colton said quietly. No, not even for this. Marcus produced another tablet. This one showing a video. It was Evan at school, shot from multiple angles. My people have been watching your boy all day. Every class, every interaction. Kids can be so cruel, can't they? Especially when they learn their classmate's father is a killer. Colton's hand shot across the table, grabbing Marcus's wrist before anyone could react. The security men reached for weapons, but Colton's voice cut through the tension like ice. If you go near my son again, if you even think about him, I'll show you what everyone thinks I did to Jimmy. Except with you, it won't be an accident. Marcus tried to pull away, but Colton's grip was iron. You're threatening me in front of witnesses. I'm promising you, Colton said, then released him. Marcus rubbed his wrist. His composure cracked. You just made a mistake, Hayes. I own judges, police commissioners, media outlets. I can destroy you. You can try, Harper interjected, her voice steady. But if you do, I'll personally ensure the board knows about your creative accounting. The Singapore funds that went missing, the ones you blamed on a systems error. Marcus went pale. You wouldn't dare. I'm Harper fucking Lane. I dare everything. She stood, gesturing for Colton to follow. We're done here, Marcus. And if I see even one negative story about Mr. Hayes or his son, I'll bury you so deep they'll need archaeologists to find you. Outside, the evening air was crisp with approaching winter. Harper walked beside Colton in silence for a block before speaking. He's going to come after both of us now. I know. I can protect myself. Can you protect Evan? Colton thought of his son's face, the pride mixed with confusion. I've been protecting him his whole life. From the truth. That's not the same as protecting him from Marcus Webb and his resources. Harper stopped walking, turned to face him. Take the fight. What? The $10 million fight. But not winner takes all. We split it no matter what. $5 million each. Enough to disappear if we need to or fight back if we choose to. You want to fight me for real? I want to control the narrative, our fight, our rules, our story. We make it about redemption, not revenge. About truth, not spectacle. And we use it to expose what really happened 12 years ago. Colton studied her face, looking for the angle, the trap. Why would you do that? Because I've spent 12 years hating the wrong person. Because Jimmy Reeves is still alive, living in Miami, running a gym, and he sent me a message an hour ago. Want to know what it said? She showed him her phone. The message was brief. Harper stopped digging. Colton saved my life that night. Let it go or we all burn. Jimmy. He's known the truth all along, Colton said, not surprised. And he let you take the blame. Let me hate you. Let everyone destroy you. Harper's voice was thick with anger, but not at Colton anymore. That's what I can't forgive. The cowardice of it. He was 23 and paralyzed. His whole world had ended. Blaming me gave him something to hold on to besides the truth that his own coach, the man he trusted, pumped him full of drugs and sent him to die for money. You're defending him. I'm understanding him. There's a difference. Harper's phone rang. She answered, her face changing as she listened. What do you mean, gone? How can he be gone? She hung up, turned to Colton with panic in her eyes. That was David, my assistant. Marcus has disappeared. Cleared out his office, transferred millions from company accounts, and vanished. He's running, or planning something. Harper's phone buzzed with another call. This time, her face went white. There's been an incident at your son's school. Someone called in a bomb threat. The building's being evacuated. Colton was already running Harper, keeping pace beside him. They covered the 20 blocks to the school in minutes, arriving to find chaos, police cars, fire trucks, parents frantically searching for children. Colton spotted Evan's bright blue backpack in a crowd of students and pushed through. Dad! Evan ran to him, and Colton crushed him in a hug. They said someone called about a bomb. Said it was because of you, because of the fighting thing. It's okay. You're safe. That's all that matters. Mr. Hayes. A police officer approached. We need to ask you some questions. He'll answer them later, Harper said, stepping forward with an authority that made the officer step back. Right now he's taking his son home. And you are a Harper Lane. My company's security team will be coordinating with you on this threat. We believe it's connected to a corporate espionage situation involving Marcus Webb. The officer's expression changed. Everyone knew Harper Lane. Of course, Ms. Lane. But we'll need Mr. Hayes to come to the station tomorrow. He'll be there. As they walked away, Evan between them, the boy looked up at Harper with curiosity. You're the lady from the video, the one my dad beat. Your dad didn't beat me, Harper said. He taught me something. What? That winning isn't always about being the strongest. Sometimes it's about knowing when not to fight. They reached Colton's apartment building. Harper started to leave, but Evan stopped her. Are you going to fight my dad again? For real this time? Harper looked at Colton, something passing between them. Maybe, but if we do, it won't be against each other. It'll be against everyone who thinks they know the truth. After Harper left, Colton made dinner while Evan did homework, trying to maintain normalcy in a day that had been anything but normal. But his mind kept racing Marcus's disappearance, the bomb threat, the fight offer. The careful life he'd built was crumbling, and he couldn't see a way to stop it. His phone rang. Unknown number. Yeah. Ghost. The voice was familiar, but older, rougher. It's Jimmy. Colton's hand tightened on the phone. Jimmy. I heard about today. Saw the video. You still move like water, man. What do you want? To warn you. Marcus Webb was there that night. He was working with my coach handling the betting. He's got more to lose than anyone if the truth comes out. I figured as much. There's more. He's got a fighter, some young killer out of Eastern Europe, trained specifically to hurt people, not win matches. Word is he's planning something. A public challenge, maybe. Force you back into the ring on his terms. I'm not fighting anymore, Jimmy. You fought today. That was different. Was it look, Ghost? I know I owe you more than I can ever repay. You could have let me die in that ring. Should have, probably. Instead, you broke my spine to save my life. That's a kind of arithmetic most people can't understand. You let them blame me. Yeah, I did. And I'm sorry for that. But I was young and scared and broken. The story they gave me was easier than the truth. Jimmy paused. But I'm not young anymore. And I'm tired of lying. If you take this fight with Harper, I'll come forward, tell everyone what really happened. Why now? Because I've got a son too, teaches classes at my gym, and he asked me the other day if I knew you if the stories were true. I couldn't look him in the eye and lie anymore. After Jimmy hung up, Colton sat in the dark living room watching the city lights through the window. Evan had fallen asleep on the couch doing homework, and Colton covered him with a blanket, studied his face. So young still, but forced to grow up fast by a father who'd been running from shadows. His phone buzzed with a text from Harper, press conference tomorrow 2 p.m. Apex Industries. We control the narrative or it controls us. Your choice. Colton looked at his sleeping son at the small apartment that had been their shelter at the uniform he'd never wear again. The ghost had been buried for 12 years. Maybe it was time to let him rise. The next morning came too soon. Colton woke to find Evan already dressed making breakfast. I'm coming with you, Evan said before Colton could speak. To school. To the press conference. Mom would have wanted me to support you. The mention of his late wife stopped Colton cold. They rarely talked about Maria, the woman who'd stood by him through the controversy, who'd believed in his innocence even when he doubted himself. Your mother was brave, Colton said carefully. Braver than me. She also knew how to fight. You taught her, didn't you, before she got sick? How did you... I found videos. On an old USB drive. You and Mom training together. She was good. She was better than good. She understood that fighting wasn't about violence. It was about protection. About standing up when standing up was hard. Like now. Yeah, Colton admitted. Like now. They took the subway to Apex Industries, finding a media circus outside the building. Hundreds of reporters, cameras, crowds of people holding signs, some supporting Harper, some supporting Colton, most just there for the spectacle. Mr. Hayes, Mr. Hayes. Reporters surged toward them. Are you taking the fight? Is it true Marcus Webb threatened your son? What really happened with Jimmy Reeves? Colton pulled Evan close, pushed through the crowd. Security guards Harper had sent were waiting, creating a pathway into the building. The press conference was being held in the same atrium where everything had started. The mat was gone, replaced by a small stage with 2 podiums. Harper was already there, looking every inch the CEO in a power suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. You came, she said simply. My son insisted. Harper looked at Evan, and something in her expression softened. You look like your father, but you have your mother's eyes. You knew my mom. I knew of her. She wrote me once after your father disappeared, told me I was wrong about him. I didn't listen. I should have. Before Evan could respond, the lights came on, cameras started rolling. Harper took the podium with the confidence of someone used to commanding attention. Yesterday, a video went viral showing an encounter between myself and one of our maintenance staff, Colton Hayes. That video has been viewed 50 million times and spawned countless questions, rumors, and speculation. Today, we're here to set the record straight. She paused, letting the moment build. Colton Hayes is not just a janitor. He's a former professional fighter who left the sport under controversial circumstances 12 years ago. I called him onto that mat yesterday because I recognized him, because I wanted answers to questions I'd been carrying for over a decade. The crowd murmured, phones recording every word. What I discovered was that I'd been wrong. The man I thought was a villain was actually a hero. The man I thought destroyed my friend actually saved his life. And the story we've all believed for 12 years was a lie designed to protect powerful people who profited from that lie. Ms. Lane, a reporter shouted. Are you saying the Jimmy Reeves incident was covered up? I'm saying that the truth is more complex than what was reported, and that Colton Hayes deserves the chance to tell his side of the story. She stepped back, gesturing for Colton to take the podium. He approached slowly, unused to being the center of attention, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes and cameras. I'm not good at speeches. He began, his voice quiet but steady. I'm better with actions than words. For 12 years, I've let my actions speak, raising my son, working hard, staying quiet. But silence has a cost, and my son has been paying it. He looked at Evan, who nodded encouragingly. 12 years ago, I made a choice in a boxing ring. A fighter named Jimmy Reeves had been drugged by his own corner. He couldn't feel pain, couldn't recognize damage. He was going to fight until he died. The referee had been paid to let it happen. So I ended it the only way I could, with a technique that would stop the fight permanently. It paralyzed Jimmy, but it saved his life. The room erupted with questions, but Colton raised his hand for silence. I took the blame because the truth would have destroyed more lives than the lie. Jimmy needed his insurance, his family needed closure. The sport needed to avoid a scandal, so I disappeared, became nobody, until yesterday. Mr. Hayes, another reporter. Will you accept the $10 million fight against Miss Lane? Colton looked at Harper, saw her slight nod. Yes, he said, and the room exploded. But not for the reasons you think. This fight isn't about revenge or money or proving who's better. It's about showing that two people who were enemies can become allies. That truth is more powerful than lies. That redemption is possible even after 12 years. The fight will take place in 6 weeks at Madison Square Garden, Harper added, retaking the podium. All proceeds will go to veterans charities and a new foundation for young fighters who need protection from exploitation. We're calling it the Second Chance Foundation. What about Marcus Webb? Someone shouted. Is it true he's fled the country? Harper's expression hardened. Marcus Webb is under federal investigation for embezzlement and fraud. His current whereabouts are unknown, but law enforcement is handling the situation. As if on cue, the lights suddenly cut out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the atrium in an eerie red glow. On the main screen behind the stage, a video began playing. It was security footage from 12 years ago, the night of the Colton-Jimmy fight. But this was angle no one had seen from Jimmy's corner. Clear as day, his coach was injecting something into Jimmy's arm, while Marcus Webb handed over a thick envelope of cash. Then the video cut to Marcus himself sitting in what looked like a warehouse. Hello, Harper. Hello, Ghost. His smile was cold. You think you can control the narrative? You think you can just rewrite history? I made you both. Harper. Who do you think orchestrated your rise at Apex? Who cleared the path for you to become CEO? And Ghost? Who do you think really ended your career? It wasn't about protecting Jimmy. It was about protecting the millions we had riding on that fight. The video continued, but now Marcus was standing next to another man, tall, muscled, with dead eyes and scars across his knuckles. This is Victor. He's from a place where they don't have rules about fighting, where they don't stop when someone taps out. He's here to challenge you, Ghost. Not in some sanctioned match with rules and referees. A real fight. Tonight, midnight. The old warehouse on Pier 47. If you don't show, Victor will visit your son's school tomorrow. And he won't be calling in fake bomb threats. The video cut out, the lights came back on, and chaos erupted. Everyone remain calm, Harper shouted over the noise. Security locked down the building. No one leaves until... But Colton was already moving Evan right behind him. Harper caught up at the elevator. You can't seriously be thinking about going, she said. He threatened my son. It's a trap. He wants you dead or damaged so badly you can't fight. Either way, he wins. Then what do you suggest? Harper pulled out her phone and started making calls. We don't play by his rules. We play by ours. The rest of the day was a blur of preparation. Harper mobilized her security team, had them scout the warehouse, set up surveillance. Ray Martinez arrived with a gym bag full of gear, his face grim. You're really doing this? Ray asked. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. We could call the cops. And Marcus would disappear again. Besides, you know as well as I do that this was always going to end in a fight. It's the only language people like Marcus understand. As evening fell, they gathered in a private gym. Harper owned her Colton Ray, and surprisingly, Jimmy Reeves, who'd flown in from Miami. You didn't have to come, Colton said. Jimmy, still in his wheelchair, but with powerful arms from years of adaptation, shrugged. Yeah, I did. This is my fault as much as anyone's. If I told the truth 12 years ago, none of this would be happening. We can't change the past, Harper said, wrapping her hands, but we can sure as hell determine the future. You're not coming, Colton said firmly. This is my fight. Like hell it is. Harper's eyes flashed. Marcus played me too, used me. This is our fight. Dad, Evan said from the doorway where he'd been listening. She's right. You're stronger together than alone. Mom would have said the same thing. Colton looked at his son, at Harper, at the men who'd stood by him through everything. For 12 years, he'd fought alone in silence, in shadow. Maybe it was time to step into the light, but not by himself. All right, he said, but we do this smart. Marcus thinks he's setting a trap. He doesn't realize he's walking into one. As midnight approached, they made their way to Pier 47. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, abandoned and ominous. But Colton wasn't the same man who'd walked into a ring 12 years ago. He wasn't fighting for glory or money or even survival. He was fighting for his son's future, for Harper's redemption, for Jimmy's forgiveness, for the truth that had been buried too long. The ghost was rising, but this time he wasn't alone. The warehouse door stood open like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. Colton could hear the Hudson River lapping against the pier, could smell rust and motor oil, and something else violence hanging in the air like perfume at a funeral. Harper walked beside him, her jaw set with determination that reminded him why she'd been undefeated in her own career. "Security teams are in position," she said quietly, touching the nearly invisible earpiece she wore. "Whatever happens in there, we're not alone." "Marcus doesn't know that," Colton replied, studying the shadows beyond the doorway. "He's counting on my pride, thinking I'll come alone." "Would you have if I hadn't insisted?" "Probably." He glanced at her. Old habits. They entered together, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. The warehouse had been abandoned for years, its skeleton of steel beams and broken windows creating a cathedral of decay. In the center, under a ring of industrial lights that shouldn't have been working, Marcus Webb waited with his fighter. Victor was even more imposing in person, 6'5", maybe 260, with the kind of muscle that came from violence, not gyms. His face was a roadmap of scar tissue, his hands wrapped in tape that was already spotted with blood, though he hadn't fought yet. "Just the two of you, say?" Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the space. "How disappointing. I expected more drama." "You want drama." Harper stepped forward. "How about this? The FBI is already freezing your accounts. The board has voted to prosecute you for embezzlement. And that little video stunt you pulled, it's been traced back to your IP address. You're done, Marcus." Marcus laughed, the sound bouncing off the walls like broken glass. "Done? I'm just getting started. You see, Harper, you never understood the real game. It was never about money or power. It was about control. And right now, I control everything." He snapped his fingers. From the shadows emerged more men, a dozen of them all carrying the same dead-eyed look as Victor. Colton felt Harper tense beside him, heard her whisper into her earpiece. "Stand down," Marcus commanded, though they hadn't been ordered to move. "Here's how this works. Ghost fights Victor. No rules, no rounds, no stopping until someone doesn't get up. If Ghost wins, I disappear, and you never hear from me again. If Victor wins," he smiled, "well, let's just say your son might need a new guardian." "You're insane," Harper said. "No, I'm practical. Ghost here cost me $12 million that night when he destroyed Jimmy instead of letting him die heroically in the ring. Do you have any idea what that did to my plans, to my reputation in certain circles?" "You mean criminal circles?" Colton said quietly. "Call them what you want. They're the people who really run things. And they've been waiting 12 years for me to settle this debt." Marcus gestured to Victor. "He's their way of collecting." Victor stepped forward, rolling his shoulders. When he spoke, his accent was thick Eastern European. "You are the Ghost, the one who paralyzed a fighter to save him." He spat on the ground. "Where I come from, we let warriors die with honor." "Where you come from," Colton replied. "Warriors die for other people's money." Victor's eyes flashed with anger. He started to move forward, but Marcus held up a hand. "Not yet. First, I want Ghost to understand the stakes." He pulled out a tablet, showed a live feed. It was Evan's apartment, filmed from outside. "My people are watching. If you try to leave, if your security interferes, if anything happens except the fight. I want to see." "I'll fight," Colton said, already shrugging off his jacket. "No." Harper grabbed his arm. "This is insane. We're calling the police." "And watch my son pay for it." Colton met her eyes. "I've been running for 12 years. Hiding. Maybe Marcus is right about one thing: this needs to end." "It doesn't need to end with you dead. Who says I'm going to die?" For the first time in 12 years, Colton smiled. Really smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. It was the smile of a predator who'd been pretending to be prey. "You forget, Harper, I've never lost a fight." "You've never fought someone like Victor," Marcus interjected. "He's killed 3 men in unsanctioned matches. He's not bound by your American rules, your sense of fair play." "Neither am I," Colton said, and something in his voice made even Victor step back slightly. "Not anymore." He moved to the center of the lit area, began stretching with the methodical precision of someone preparing for war. Harper stayed close, her voice urgent. "You don't have to prove anything. Not to me, not to Marcus, not to anyone." "I'm not proving anything," Colton said, testing his range of motion. "I'm protecting my son. There's a difference." What if you lose? Then you take care of Evan. Promise me. Harper's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You're not going to lose. Promise me anyway. I promise. But Colton, she grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. You come back. You fight, you win, and you come back. Because that boy needs his father, and because... She paused, something shifting in her expression. Because I need you to help me run the foundation. The Second Chance Foundation. We're partners now, remember? Before Colton could respond, Victor had moved into the circle, bouncing on his feet despite his size. The other men formed a loose ring around them, a human arena with no escape. Last chance, Ghost, Marcus called out. You can walk away. Leave the city. Leave the country. I'll even give you money to disappear. I tried disappearing, Colton replied, settling into a stance that was different from what he'd shown against Harper, lower, more grounded, ancient. It didn't take. Victor attacked without warning, a rushing bull charge that would have destroyed most fighters. But Colton wasn't there anymore, having shifted just enough to let the bigger man's momentum carry him past. Victor spun through a haymaker that could have decapitated someone. Colton ducked under it, his hand snapping out to strike Victor's ribs. It was a precise hit targeting the floating rib, and Victor grunted the first sign he could feel pain. You're quick for an old man, Victor said, circling more carefully now. You're slow for a killer, Colton replied. Victor's face darkened. He came in again, but this time with more technique, a combination of strikes that showed formal training beneath the brutality. Colton weaved through them, his movement liquid, but one caught him a knee to the ribs that lifted him off his feet. He rolled with the impact, came up moving, but Harper saw him wince. Something was damaged. He's hurt, Marcus crowed. The Ghost is already breaking. Victor pressed his advantage, throwing bombs that Colton could only partially avoid. Each impact that landed was devastating, and Colton was being driven back toward the wall of men who wouldn't let him pass. Come on, Ghost, Harper shouted. Remember what you taught me, use his force. Shh. But Victor had learned from the early exchange. He wasn't overcommitting anymore, wasn't giving Colton anything to redirect. He was breaking him down systematically, like a demolition expert taking apart a building. A particularly vicious combination sent Colton to one knee. Victor stood over him, breathing hard but smiling. The Ghost dies tonight, he said, raising his fist for a finishing blow. That's when Colton moved. It wasn't the desperate scramble of a beaten fighter. It was the explosive precision of someone who'd been playing a different game entirely. His hand shot up, catching Victor's descending fist and redirecting it into the concrete floor. The impact was tremendous. Everyone heard the bones break. Victor screamed, tried to pull back, but Colton was already flowing into the next movement. His legs scissored around Victor's, taking him down, and suddenly the giant was on his back with Colton on top, raining down elbows that were aimed with surgical precision. Stop playing with him, Marcus shouted. Victor, get up. But Victor couldn't get up. Colton had shifted into full mount, his weight distributed perfectly, his strikes targeting nerve clusters and pressure points that most fighters didn't even know existed. It wasn't boxing or MMA, it was something older, more devastating. This is what I learned, Colton said, his voice carrying despite the violence. Not in a gym or a ring. In places where there were no rules, no referees, no mercy. Before I became a fighter, I was something else. Something worse. He grabbed Victor's arm, twisted it into a lock that threatened to tear every ligament. Yield, Colton said quietly. Victor tried to resist, but Colton applied pressure. The arm began to bend in ways arms shouldn't bend. Yield or I break it beyond repair. You'll never fight again. Do it, Marcus screamed. Victor, destroy him. But Victor had felt something in Colton's grip, seen something in his eyes. This wasn't a sport fighter or even a tough guy. This was someone who'd learned violence in places where losing meant dying. I yield, Victor gasped. Colton immediately released him, stood up, stepped back. The warehouse was silent except for Victor's labored breathing. No. Marcus pulled out a gun, pointed it at Colton. You don't get to win, not again. The shot was impossibly loud in the enclosed space. But Colton wasn't where the bullet went. He'd moved the instant he saw Marcus's hand twitch old instincts from a life before fighting, before Evan, before everything. Harper had moved too, and her thrown shoe caught Marcus in the face just as he tried to track Colton for a second shot. The gun went flying, skittering across the concrete. Then the warehouse erupted. Harper's security team burst in from multiple entrances, weapons drawn, shouting commands. The FBI followed seconds later. Apparently Harper's call about Marcus's location had been taken seriously. Marcus tried to run, but found Jimmy Reeves blocking his path in his wheelchair. "Hello, Marcus," Jimmy said calmly. "Remember me? The fighter you tried to kill for money." "Get out of my way, cripple." Jimmy smiled. "That's the thing about being in a wheelchair for 12 years. You develop really strong arms." He reached out, grabbed Marcus's leg, and yanked. Marcus went down hard, his head hitting the concrete with a sound like a dropped melon. He didn't get back up. As the FBI cuffed an unconscious Marcus and his men, Colton found himself sitting on the floor, exhausted. Harper sat beside him. Her designer suit ruined her hair a mess, looking more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. "You lied," she said. "About what?" "About being just a janitor, about being nobody. That fighting style that wasn't MMA, that wasn't boxing." Colton was quiet for a moment. "Before I was a fighter, I was a soldier, special operations, places that don't officially exist doing things that never officially happened. When I came home, fighting was therapy, a way to use the violence for something clean, something with rules. And then Jimmy happened, and I became nobody because nobody was safer than what I used to be." Harper leaned against his shoulder. "You're not nobody. You never were." "Dad?" Evan broke through the police line, ran to his father. Colton caught him, held him tight, felt the boy's tears on his shoulder. "I'm okay," Colton whispered. "Everything's okay. I saw it on the news. They said you were fighting some killer. I thought—" Evan pulled back, looked at his father with eyes that were too old for 13. "I thought I was going to lose you too." "Not a chance, soldier. I made a promise to your mom. I plan to keep it." Ray Martinez approached, shaking his head. "In all my years training fighters, I've never seen anything like that. Where the hell did you learn to fight like that?" "Different life," Colton said simply. "One I thought I'd left behind." "Maybe you can't leave things behind," Harper said. "Maybe you can only transform them into something better." The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of training and media attention. The story of Marcus Webb's arrest, the revealed truth about the Jimmy Reeves fight, and the upcoming bout between Harper and Colton had captured the world's imagination. Not as a grudge match, but as something else, a demonstration of redemption, forgiveness, and the power of truth. They trained together, pushing each other, learning from each other. Harper improved her ground game under Colton's tutelage, while he remembered what it felt like to fight for joy rather than survival. Evan was there every day after school, wrapping hands, holding pads, becoming part of something larger than himself. Jimmy Reeves became a regular presence, using his platform to tell the truth about that night 12 years ago. The Boxing Commission reopened the investigation, several officials were indicted, and Colton's name was officially cleared. 3 days before the fight, Sarah Kim released her documentary. The security footage she'd obtained showed everything Marcus paying off officials. Jimmy's coach injecting him with a cocktail of drugs, the referee deliberately ignoring obvious signs of distress. But more importantly, it showed Colton's face in those final moments, the anguish of a man forced to make an impossible choice. "You saved my life," Jimmy said at the premiere, addressing Colton publicly for the first time. "You sacrificed everything to save someone who didn't deserve it. I can never repay that, but I can try to make it right." The night of the fight, Madison Square Garden was electric. 20,000 people packed the arena, with millions more watching worldwide. The purse had grown to 15 million, with both fighters pledging their shares to the Second Chance Foundation. In the locker room, Colton sat with Evan, both of them quiet. "You nervous?" Evan asked. "Terrified," Colton admitted. "Why? You've beaten her before." "This is different. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about showing the world that enemies can become allies, that the past doesn't have to define the future." He looked at his son. "It's about showing you that your dad is more than his mistakes." "I already know that," Evan said simply. "I've always known that." Harper appeared in the doorway wearing her fight gear. "They're ready for us." The walk to the ring was surreal. The crowd was on its feet cheering for both of them, understanding that they were witnessing something unique. This wasn't about violence or dominance, it was about closure. They met in the center of the ring, the referee between them. "I want a clean fight," he said. "Protect yourselves at all times. Touch gloves." They did, and Harper whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For coming back, for fighting, for showing me who you really are." The bell rang and they began to move. But this wasn't the desperate survival of their first encounter, or the brutal violence of the warehouse. This was art. Two masters demonstrating their craft, pushing each other, elevating each other. Harper's strikes were crisp, precise, beautiful. Colton's movement was liquid ghost-like, living up to his old nickname. They traded combinations that had the crowd gasping, grappling exchanges that showed technical mastery, moments of pure athletic brilliance that transcended sport. In the third round, Harper caught Colton with a combination that sent him to the canvas. The crowd held its breath as he got up, smiling, nodding his appreciation. In the fifth, Colton demonstrated a throw that put Harper on her back, but he helped her up immediately, both of them grinning. By the eighth round, they were both exhausted, bloody, exhilarated. The crowd was chanting both their names, understanding they were witnessing something special. "You could end this," Harper gasped during a clinch. "You're holding back." "So are you," Colton replied. "We both are. Because this isn't about ending anything. It's about beginning." The final round was a war. They held nothing back, trading strikes with bad intentions, neither willing to give an inch. When the final bell rang, they were holding each other up, foreheads pressed together, both laughing and crying simultaneously. The judge's decision was split a draw. The crowd erupted, understanding it was the only possible outcome. There was no loser tonight, only winners. As they raised each other's hands in the center of the ring, Colton saw Evan in the front row, tears streaming down his face, proud beyond words. He saw Ray Martinez nodding approval. Jimmy Reeves actually standing, supported by advanced prosthetics he'd been afraid to try until now, and applauding. "What now?" Harper asked, both of them battered but triumphant. "Now we build something," Colton said. "The foundation. A place where fighters can be safe, where truth matters more than money, where second chances are real. Together. Together." 6 months later, the Second Chance Foundation opened its doors in a renovated warehouse, not the one where violence had nearly destroyed them, but one where it would be transformed into protection. The gym was state-of-the-art with medical staff, counselors, and trainers who understood that fighting was about more than winning. Evan was one of the first students learning not just how to fight, but when not to. Harper taught classes for abuse survivors, showing them how strength came in many forms. Colton worked with veterans, people like himself, who'd seen too much violence and needed to find peace within it. Marcus Webb was convicted on multiple charges, sentenced to 20 years. Victor surprisingly applied to be an instructor at the foundation. "I was warrior in wrong war," he said simply. "Now I fight for right things." They gave him a chance. Second chances were what they were about after all. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Colton stood on the roof of the foundation building watching the kids train in the courtyard below. Harper joined him, as she often did these days. "Any regrets?" she asked. "About the fight? The past everything? Any of it?" Colton thought for a moment. "No. Every mistake, every hard choice, every moment of pain, it all led here. Led to this." He gestured at the thriving foundation below. "Led to us." Harper took his hand, a gesture that had become natural over the months. The ghost and the hurricane. "Who would have thought?" "Mom would have," Evan said, appearing beside them with his training gear. "She always said Dad would find his way back to the light. Just needed the right person to show him the path." "And you think I'm that person?" Harper asked. "I think you both are," Evan said. "For each other." As the three of them stood there watching the sun paint the city gold, Colton realized his son was right. The ghost hadn't been resurrected, he'd been transformed. The man who'd hidden in shadows for 12 years had finally stepped into the light, not alone but surrounded by people who'd fought their way through their own darkness. The warehouse on Pier 47 had been demolished. Marcus's empire had crumbled and the lies of the past had been exposed. But from those ashes, something new had grown, something built on truth, sustained by forgiveness, and strengthened by the understanding that redemption wasn't a destination, it was a daily choice. "Come on," Harper said, pulling them toward the stairs. "Ray's teaching that new combination I want to learn." "The one that nearly knocked me out last week?" Colton asked. "That's the one." "You're going to be the death of me." "Maybe," Harper grinned. But what a way to go. They descended into the gym together, the sounds of training and laughter rising to meet them. The ghost was gone, but Colton Hayes, father, teacher, partner, and fighter, was finally fully alive. The Foundation's success hadn't gone unnoticed. 3 months after the Madison Square Garden fight, Colton stood in Harper's office. She'd insisted he have one adjacent to hers, reading a letter that had arrived by courier. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from recognition of a past he'd thought permanently buried. "What is it?" Harper asked, noticing his sudden stillness. "An invitation," Colton said quietly, "to testify before Congress. The House Committee on Sports Integrity wants to investigate corruption in professional fighting." Harper moved closer, reading over his shoulder. "This is good. You can finally tell the whole truth on record under oath." "It's not that simple." Colton set the letter down, walked to the window overlooking the gym where Evan was sparring with another student. "If I testify, I'll have to talk about everything. Not just the Jimmy Reeves fight, but what came before. My military service. The things I did that led me to fighting in the first place. The things you've never told me about. The things I've never told anyone about, not even Maria." He watched his son below, noting how much the boy had grown in just 6 months, taller, stronger, more confident. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. Harper was quiet for a moment, then said, "Marcus is going to testify too. His lawyer called. He's trying to cut a deal claiming he has information about a larger conspiracy. International fight-fixing, money laundering connections to organized crime. Let me guess he's painting himself as a small fish who got caught up in something bigger." "Exactly. And he's suggesting you were part of it. That the Jimmy Reeves incident was staged to manipulate betting odds." Colton turned from the window, his expression hard. "He's lying. I know that. You know that. But a congressional committee looking for headlines might not care about the truth as much as the story." Before Colton could respond, Ray Martinez burst through the door, his face flushed with urgency. "We've got a problem," Ray said. "There's a kid downstairs, 16 years old, beaten half to death. Says he knows you, Colt. Says you saved his father's life in Afghanistan." Colton was already moving, Harper following. They found the boy in the Foundation's medical room, their on-staff doctor treating numerous contusions and what looked like defensive wounds. The kid was Middle Eastern thin with eyes that had seen too much. "You're the ghost, boys," the boy said when he saw Colton. "My father showed me pictures. You pulled him out of a burning building in Kandahar, 2009. Colton studied the boy's face, saw familiar features. "Rashid, your father was our translator. Is he dead 3 weeks ago? They said it was a robbery, but it wasn't." The boy winced as the doctor cleaned a particularly deep cut. "The same people who are after me now. They wanted something my father had. Documents. Proof." "Proof of what?" "That American military contractors were selling weapons to insurgents. That fights were being fixed to launder the money. That someone named Marcus Webb was the connection between the military contracts and the fighting world." Harper and Colton exchanged glances. This was bigger than they'd imagined. "Where are these documents?" Harper asked. "Safe. Hidden. My father said if anything happened to him, I should find the ghost. Said you were the only one he trusted." The boy reached into his jacket, pulled out a flash drive. "This is just a sample. The rest is in a safety deposit box. But I need protection. They've already tried to kill me twice." "Who's they?" Colton asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Consortium of military contractors, organized crime sports management companies. My father spent years gathering evidence after he came to America. He wanted to expose them all, but he needed someone with credibility, someone who couldn't be bought or intimidated. Someone who'd already lost everything and had nothing left to lose," Colton said quietly. "No, the boy Amir." He said his name was corrected. "Someone who'd found something worth fighting for again." They set Amir up in a secure room at the foundation, posted Victor as security. The former enforcer had become fiercely protective of the kids they helped. Harper called her lawyers, started building a legal strategy. But Colton knew legal strategies wouldn't be enough. The people Amir was describing didn't operate within the law. That night, as Colton was helping Evan with homework, his son asked, "Is it true what that kid said about you saving his father in Afghanistan? How did you—" "I was listening. I'm getting good at that. Mom used to say I inherited your ability to be invisible when I wanted to be." Colton set down the math textbook. "Yes, it's true. Were there others? People you saved. Some, not enough. Is that why you became a fighter, to save people a different way?" The question was so perceptive, it took Colton's breath away. "Maybe. I never really thought about it like that. Mom did. She left journals. I've been reading them." Evan pulled out a worn notebook, his mother's handwriting visible on the pages. "She wrote about how you needed to fight because you needed to save people, but the only person you couldn't save was yourself." Colton took the journal with trembling hands, recognized Maria's writing immediately. He read the passage Evan had marked, "Colton carries ghosts." Not just the ghosts they call him in the ring, but real ghosts. People he couldn't save, choices he had to make, violence he had to commit in service of something greater. He fights because in the ring the violence has rules, has purpose, has honor. It's his way of making peace with the chaos he's seen. I pray that one day he finds actual peace, not just the temporary kind that comes between bells. "She understood you," Evan said simply. "Better than you understood yourself." "She always did." Colton handed back the journal. "Your mother was the smartest person I ever knew. Harper's smart too." "Yes, she is. She looks at you the way Mom used to, like she sees all of you, not just the parts you show the world." Before Colton could respond to that observation, his phone rang. Unknown number, but something made him answer. "Hello, Ghost." The voice was electronically distorted, impossible to identify. "You have something that belongs to us." "I have a lot of things. You'll need to be more specific." "The boy. Amir. He has property that was stolen from legitimate businesses." "You mean evidence of crimes that you'd rather keep hidden?" "Semantics. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to deliver the boy and all copies of his father's documents to us. In exchange, we'll ensure your congressional testimony goes smoothly. Marcus Webb will recant his accusations. Your son will receive a full scholarship to any university he chooses. And if I refuse, then the world learns about Operation Sandstorm, about the village, about the 15 civilians who died because Sergeant Colton Hayes made a judgment call." Colton's blood turned to ice. That mission was classified beyond classified. The fact that these people knew about it meant they had connections at the highest levels of government. "You have 48 hours, the voice continued. "We'll be in touch with delivery instructions." The line went dead. Colton stood there, phone in hand, feeling the past crashing over him like a tide. Evan was watching him with concern. "Dad, what's wrong?" "Nothing I can't handle." Colton lied. "Finish your homework. I need to talk to Harper." He found her in the gym working the heavy bag with the intensity that suggested she was working through her own demons. She'd changed since the fight, become harder and softer, simultaneously harder, toward those who threatened what they'd built, softer, toward those who needed help. "We need to talk," he said. She stopped punching, turned to him, saw something in his face. "What happened?" He told her about the call, about Operation Sandstorm, about the choice he was being forced to make. Harper listened without interrupting, then said, "Tell me about the village." "It was supposed to be a simple extraction, get our translator's family out before the Taliban found them. But we had bad intel. The village was already occupied. We had to make a choice, abort and let our allies die or fight through and risk civilian casualties." "You fought through." "I made the call to fight through. 15 civilians died in the crossfire. Women, children. The official report blamed the Taliban, said they used human shields. But I gave the order. I live with those faces every day." Harper was quiet for a moment, then moved closer, took his face in her hands. "You made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. That's not the same as murder. Tell that to the families of those 15 people. You saved Rashid's family. Amir's father. How many others that night? 43. 43 lives saved, 15 lost. That's arithmetic no one should have to do, but you did it. And now these people want to use it against you. If it comes out, it won't just destroy me. It'll destroy the foundation, everything we've built. Everyone associated with us will be tainted. Then we don't let it come out. Harper's eyes were fierce. We fight, not in a ring with rules, but the way they're fighting. Dirty. Harper. No, listen to me. I've spent my entire corporate career dealing with people like this. They think they're untouchable because they have money and connections and secrets. But everyone has vulnerabilities. Everyone has something they don't want exposed. She pulled out her phone and started making calls. Within an hour, her office was filled with people lawyers, private investigators, a cybersecurity expert who looked like he was still in college, but who Harper assured was the best in the business. Here's what we know. Harper addressed the room like a general preparing for war. Someone is trying to blackmail Colton into surrendering evidence of military contractor corruption. They have classified information they shouldn't have. That means someone in the government is feeding them intel. I can trace the call, the cybersecurity expert said. If they contact him again, I can track them. They'll use burner phones, anonymous servers, one of the investigators said. Doesn't matter. Everyone makes mistakes, leaves digital footprints. The kid was already typing on his laptop. I just need one mistake. What about protection for Amir? Colton asked. Already arranged, Harper said. I've hired a private security firm. Former Special Forces people Ray vouched for. They're setting up a perimeter now. And the documents? We make copies, lots of copies. Send them to journalists, law enforcement agencies, congressional offices. Make it impossible to suppress. If we do that, they'll release the information about Operation Sandstorm. Harper looked at him steadily. Then we get ahead of it. You tell your story first. Control the narrative. I can't. You can. You've been carrying this alone for too long. It's time to let others help carry it. The next morning, Colton woke to find Evan already up dressed in his training gear. Early session, Colton asked. No, I'm coming with you. Coming where? To the congressional hearing. Mom always said we face things as a family. We're family, right? Evan, this could get ugly. The things they might say about me. I don't care what they say. I care about the truth. And the truth is my dad is a hero even if he doesn't see it himself. 2 days later, they sat in a congressional hearing room that felt more like a coliseum. Cameras lined the walls, reporters packed the gallery, and the committee members sat elevated above everyone else like judges at a trial. Marcus was there in an orange jumpsuit and shackles flanked by federal marshals. He caught Colton's eye, smirked. He still thought he had cards to play. Committee Chairman Harrison, a senator with presidential ambitions and a hunger for headlines, called the hearing to order. We're here today to investigate corruption in professional fighting, specifically the incident 12 years ago involving Mr. Colton Hayes and Mr. Jimmy Reeves, as well as broader allegations of fight fixing and money laundering. He looked directly at Colton. Mr. Hayes, you've been called the Ghost, a fighter who disappeared after allegedly causing permanent injury to another fighter. Today we want the truth, the whole truth. Colton leaned into the microphone. The truth, Senator, is more complex than what fits in a headline. Then enlighten us. Colton began to speak, telling the story not just of that night 12 years ago, but of everything that led to it. His military service, the impossible choices, the transition to fighting as a way to find peace. He talked about Maria, about raising Evan alone, about choosing to become invisible to protect his son from his past. When he got to the night of the Jimmy Reeves fight, he didn't hold back. He described the drugs, the corruption, the moment when he realized Jimmy would die if the fight continued. I had seconds to make a choice, Colton said. Let him die a hero in the ring or save his life in a way that would end his career. I chose life. I'd make the same choice again. Even knowing what it cost you, Senator Harrison asked, especially knowing what it cost me, because I'm sitting here today able to look my son in the eye. Jimmy Reeves is alive, walking again, thanks to new technology, running a gym where he helps young fighters. That's worth more than any reputation. Mr. Webb has suggested you were part of a larger conspiracy, the senator said. That the fight was fixed. Mr. Webb is trying to save himself by destroying others. It's what he's always done. Marcus stood up suddenly, despite his lawyer's attempts to stop him. Tell them about Operation Sandstorm Ghost. Tell them about the village. The room erupted in confusion. Senator Harrison banged his gavel for order. What's Operation Sandstorm? The senator demanded. This was the moment Colton had dreaded. But as he looked at Harper in the gallery, at Evan beside her, at Ray and Jimmy, and even Victor, who'd come to support him, he realized he wasn't alone anymore. Operation Sandstorm was a classified military operation in Afghanistan, Colton said clearly. I was the sergeant in charge of an extraction mission that went wrong. 15 civilians died. I've carried that guilt for 16 years. You murdered civilians, Marcus shouted. This is your hero, a killer. I made a battlefield decision that saved 43 lives at the cost of 15. Colton said, his voice steady despite the pain. It was the hardest choice I've ever made, and I live with it every day, but I don't hide from it anymore. How is this relevant to the fight-fixing investigation? Senator Harrison asked, clearly thrown by this turn. Because the same military contractors involved in covering up Operation Sandstorm were laundering money through professional fighting, Harper said, standing up in the gallery. We have proof. She held up a flash drive. Everything's here. Financial records, communications, names, dates. The conspiracy, Mr. Webb was part of, goes all the way to Pentagon procurement offices. You can't introduce evidence from the gallery, the senator began. I can, if I'm a witness, Harper said. I'm Harper Lane, CEO of Apex Industries. I'm also the woman who fought Colton Hayes 6 months ago, and I'm here to testify that everything he said is true. The hearing devolved into chaos. Marcus was screaming about deals and immunity. Reporters were shouting questions. The committee members were arguing among themselves. Through it all, Colton sat quietly feeling something he hadn't experienced in years, peace. The secrets were out, all of them. And he was still standing. The hearing was recessed, but the damage was done. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Not just about the fight fixing, but about Operation Sandstorm, about Colton's past, about the conspiracy that connected military contractors to organized crime to professional sports. That evening, Colton stood on the roof of the foundation expecting to see his reputation in ruins. Instead, he found something else. Messages of support from veterans who'd faced similar impossible choices. Families of fighters who'd been exploited expressing gratitude for his courage. Even some families from Afghanistan saying they understood the impossible position he'd been in. You did it, Harper said, joining him. You told the truth, and you survived. We survived, Colton corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. No one can do anything meaningful alone. She took his hand. Marcus is finished. He's looking at life in prison. The contractors are under federal investigation. The foundation is receiving more donations than we can process. You won. Did I 15 people are still dead because of my decision? And 43 are alive. And now hundreds of kids will get help through the foundation. Thousands of fighters will be protected from exploitation. That's your legacy, Colton. Not the ghost. Not the violence. The lives you've saved and will continue to save. Evan appeared on the roof carrying his mother's journal. Dad, there's something else Mom wrote. I think you should hear it. He opened to a marked page, began to read. I know Colton thinks he's broken, that the things he's done and seen have damaged him beyond repair. But I see something different. I see a man who breaks himself against the world's sharp edges so others don't have to. That's not broken. That's the definition of whole, someone complete enough to give pieces of themselves to save others. Tears ran down Colton's face as his son continued. I won't live to see him realize this truth about himself. But I know someone will. Someone who's strong enough to stand with him, to fight beside him, to show him that he doesn't have to carry everything alone. When that person comes, I hope Colton is brave enough to let them in. He deserves that kind of love. The kind that doesn't try to fix you, but stands with you while you fix yourself. Evan closed the journal, looked at his father and Harper standing close together. I think Mom would be happy about this, about all of it. You really think so? Colton asked. I know so. She always said you'd find your way back to the light. You just needed time. Evan smiled. And maybe someone to spar with who wouldn't let you win. Harper laughed, the sound bright in the evening air. I never let anyone win. Neither do I, Colton said. Not anymore. A week later, the foundation hosted its first major tournament. Not professional fights for money, but amateur bouts for young fighters who wanted to test themselves in a safe, monitored environment. No gambling, no fixed matches, no exploitation, just pure sport. Colton watched from ringside as Evan competed in his first official match. The boy moved like his father, fluid-controlled, always thinking 3 moves ahead. But he also had his mother's grace, her ability to find beauty even in conflict. He's good, Jimmy said from his wheelchair beside Colton. Really good. He could go pro someday if he wanted. That's his choice to make, Colton replied. All I can do is make sure he has choices. You've done more than that. You've given him a legacy to be proud of. The match ended with Evan victorious, but immediately helping his opponent up, checking if he was okay. The crowd applauded not just the winner, but the sportsmanship. That's what we're building, Harper said, appearing beside them. Fighters who understand that strength isn't about domination. It's about protection. That night after the tournament, after the crowds had gone home and the foundation had grown quiet, Colton found himself in the gym with Harper. They were cleaning up, putting equipment away, comfortable in the domestic rhythm they'd developed. I've been thinking, Harper said, coiling hand wraps, about what comes next. The foundation's doing well. We have funding for the next 5 years at least. I'm not talking about the foundation. She stopped, turned to face him. I'm talking about us. Us. Don't play dumb ghost. We've been dancing around this for months. I see how you look at me. You see how I look at you. Even your 13-year-old son sees it. Harper. I know you love Maria. I know you think you don't deserve to be happy again, but she's gone, Colton, and she wrote in her journal that she wanted you to find someone. She wanted you to be happy. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I'm dangerous. My past. Your past is what makes you who you are, and who you are is the man I've fallen in love with. The words hung in the air between them. I love your strength and your gentleness. I love how you protect everyone but yourself. I love how you teach and how you learn. I love how you've taken every terrible thing that's happened to you and transformed it into something that helps others. Colton stood frozen, unable to speak. Say something, Harper whispered. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. It's been so long since I let anyone in. Then we'll figure it out together. Like we figured out the foundation. Like we figured out how to fight each other without destroying each other. Like we figure out everything together. She moved closer, close enough that he could feel her warmth, smell the faint scent of the gym mixed with her perfume. I'm scared, he admitted. So am I. But isn't that what courage is? Being scared and moving forward anyway. You're quoting my own lessons back to me. I'm a good student. He kissed her, then soft and careful at first, then deeper as years of loneliness and isolation melted away. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. So what now? Colton asked. Now we stop hiding, Harper said. Both of us. We stop pretending we're alone in this fight. Evan already told me I should ask you out. His exact words were, my dad's clueless about everything except fighting, so you'll have to make the first move. Colton laughed. Really laughed for the first time in years. That sounds like him. He also said his mom would approve. That she'd want you to be happy. She would, Colton agreed. She always saw the best in people, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. Then let's honor that. Let's be our best selves, not for her, but for us, for Evan, for all the kids we're helping, for the future we're building. As they stood there in the empty gym, surrounded by the equipment of their trade, the tools of violence transformed into instruments of growth. Colton realized that the ghost truly was dead. Not destroyed, but transformed into something better. Colton Hayes, father, teacher, partner, and yes, fighter, had finally found what he'd been searching for without knowing it. Not redemption that had come through truth, not forgiveness that had come through understanding, but connection. The kind that doesn't break under pressure but gets stronger. The kind that takes 2 fighters and makes them a team. There's something else, Harper said. The Congressional Committee wants us to testify again, together this time, about the foundation, about how we're working to clean up the sport. Next month. But this time, we're not defending ourselves. We're on the attack. We're going after everyone who profits from exploiting fighters. That's a lot of enemies to make. Good thing we're fighters, then. Good thing we're together, Colton corrected. Harper smiled that fierce expression that had first caught his attention in the atrium months ago. They won't know what hit them. The congressional hearing room felt different this time. Where before it had been a battlefield, now it was a stage for something unprecedented. Colton sat beside Harper at the witness table, their hands briefly touching beneath the polished wood, a gesture invisible to the cameras but grounding for both of them. The past month had been a whirlwind of preparation, investigation, and most surprisingly, the delicate navigation of their new relationship under the watchful eye of a 13-year-old who seemed to find the whole thing both amusing and overdue. Senator Harrison gavelled the session to order, his expression considerably less hostile than it had been at the previous hearing. The exposure of the conspiracy had made headlines for weeks, and public opinion had shifted dramatically in Colton's favor. "Mr. Hayes, Ms. Lane," the senator began, "you've submitted extensive documentation about corruption in professional fighting. The committee has reviewed your evidence. It's comprehensive." "Comprehensive is one word for it," Harper replied. "Damning would be another." She opened a folder, pulled out a photograph. "This is Tommy Suarez, 17 years old, died in an unsanctioned fight in Newark 3 months ago. His corner knew he had a brain bleed from a previous fight, but sent him out anyway because they had money on him losing in the 3rd round. That's murder," Senator Morrison from Texas said. "That's business as usual in certain circles," Colton interjected. "Tommy's just one of dozens we've documented. Kids pushed into fights they're not ready for, veterans with traumatic brain injuries being exploited for underground matches, fighters drugged without their knowledge to affect outcomes." "And you're proposing what exactly?" Harrison asked. "Federal oversight," Harper said. "Not just for professional boxing and MMA, but for all combat sports. Mandatory medical screenings, financial transparency, and harsh penalties for fight fixing." "The athletic commissions are compromised," Colton cut in. "We have evidence that 7 state commissioners have taken bribes in the last 5 years alone. The system is broken from the inside." A door at the back of the room opened, and Marcus Webb was brought in, still in custody, but scheduled to testify as part of his plea deal. He looked smaller somehow, his expensive suit replaced by a federal jumpsuit, his arrogance dimmed but not extinguished. "Mr. Webb," Harrison addressed him, "you've agreed to testify about your involvement in exchange for a reduced sentence." "I have," Marcus said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "But I wanted on record that I was a small part of a much larger machine." "How convenient," Harper murmured loud enough for the microphones to catch. Marcus's eyes flashed with his old venom. "You want to know the truth? Fine. The fight game is worth billions globally. Not just the legal fights, the underground circuits, the money laundering, the gambling. You think what I did was bad. I was middle management at best." "Then tell us about upper management," Harrison prompted. Marcus glanced nervously around the room, as if expecting someone to silence him. "There's a syndicate. They call themselves the Circuit. Former military intelligence operatives, billionaire investors. They own fighters like livestock trade, then breed them, dispose of them when they're no longer profitable." "That's quite an accusation," Senator Morrison said. "Do you have proof?" "I have names," Marcus said. "Dates, financial records. But if I give them to you, I'm a dead man." "You're already a dead man walking," Colton said quietly. "The only question is whether your death means something." The room fell silent. Marcus stared at Colton, something shifting in his expression. "You really believe in this redemption nonsense, don't you?" Marcus asked. "This idea that people can change, start over, be better." "I have to," Colton replied. "Otherwise, what was it all for?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then pulled out a piece of paper he'd hidden in his jumpsuit. "These are the names, the real players. But once I give you this, I need protection. Real protection, not just federal custody." Harper took the paper, scanned it, her face paling. She passed it to Colton, who recognized several names, military contractors he'd encountered in Afghanistan, casino owners, even a federal judge. "This is going to start a war," Harper said. "Then we'd better be ready to fight," Colton replied. The hearing continued for 3 more hours, with Marcus revealing detail after detail of the corruption network. By the end, even the skeptical committee members looked shaken. When they finally recessed, Colton felt like he'd gone 12 rounds with a heavyweight. Outside the Capitol, reporters swarmed them. "Mr. Hayes, Ms. Lane, are you concerned about retaliation? How deep does this conspiracy go? Is it true you two are romantically involved?" That last question made them both pause. They hadn't publicly acknowledged their relationship, trying to keep focus on the foundation and the investigation. But Harper, never one to back down from a challenge, took Colton's hand in full view of the cameras. "Yes," she said simply. "We're together. We found each other through conflict, built something through understanding, and now we're partners in every sense of the word." "From enemies to lovers, Mom," a reporter said. "That's quite a story." "It's not a story," Colton said. "It's our life. And right now our life is dedicated to protecting fighters and exposing those who exploit them." They pushed through the crowd to a waiting car where Evan sat in the back seat, having watched the hearing on his phone. "You guys killed it," he said. Marcus looked like he was about to wet himself. "Language," Colton said automatically. "That's not even a bad word." "It's the intent that matters," Harper said, but she was smiling. "Though you're not wrong about Marcus." As they drove back to New York, Colton's phone rang. The number was unknown, but something about it felt familiar. "Yeah, Sergeant Hayes." The voice was older, gravelly, but Colton recognized it immediately. General Morrison, his former commanding officer. "General? It's been a long time." "Too long. I watched your testimony. Both of them. You did good, son." "I told the truth. That's what I mean. The truth about Sandstorm, about all of it. That took courage. Or stupidity. Same thing sometimes. Listen, Colton, the names Marcus gave up, some of them are connected to people I've been investigating for years. Military contractors who've been selling weapons to both sides of conflicts, using fight circuits to launder the money. How can I help? You already are. That foundation of yours is becoming a safe harbor for fighters who want out of the circuit. Keep doing what you're doing. Build it bigger. Make it a beacon. That's the plan. Good. And Colton, I'm proud of you. You found a way to serve without the uniform. That's rare." After the general hung up, Colton sat in thoughtful silence. Harper squeezed his hand. "Heavy news? Maybe. Or maybe an opportunity. The general wants the foundation to expand, become a national network." "We could do that," Harper said, already thinking strategically. "Franchise the model. Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, places where the circuit is strongest. That would put a target on our backs. There's already a target on our backs. Might as well make it worth their while." That night they had dinner at Colton's apartment, a family meal that had become routine over the past month. Harper had gradually started spending more time there, her presence filling spaces that had been empty since Maria's death. She helped Evan with his homework while Colton cooked the domestic scene, so normal it sometimes made him forget the violence that had brought them together. "I have news," Evan announced as they ate. "I got accepted to the advanced program at school. Full scholarship." "That's amazing," Harper said, high-fiving him. "When did you find out?" "Today, while you guys were testifying. They said my essay about Dad was what convinced them." "You wrote about me?" Colton asked, surprised. "About us? Our family? How we're unconventional, but it works." Evan grinned. "I may have mentioned that my stepmom-to-be is a CEO and former UFC champion. That probably didn't hurt." "Stepmom-to-be." Harper raised an eyebrow, looking at Colton. "Is there something you haven't asked me yet?" Colton felt heat rise to his face. "Evan, we talked about not pressuring." "I'm not pressuring. I'm just stating facts. You two are basically married already, just without the paperwork." "Kid's got a point," Harper said, her eyes twinkling, "though usually there's a proposal involved." "Can we talk about this when there aren't 13-year-old ears listening?" Colton asked. "I'm almost 14, Evan protested. "And Mom always said you were terrible at romantic stuff. She said you proposed to her while fixing a leaky pipe." "That's not entirely accurate," Colton said weakly. "Was there a pipe involved?" Harper asked, amused. "There might have been." "And was it leaking?" "Everything was leaking in that apartment." They laughed, the sound filling the small space with warmth. Later, after Evan had gone to bed, Colton and Harper sat on the fire escape, looking out at the city lights. "He's not wrong, you know," Harper said. About us being basically married. I know. So why haven't you asked? Colton was quiet for a moment. Because I'm scared. Not of commitment, I'm already committed to you completely. But marriage, I had that with Maria. It was perfect until it wasn't, until cancer took her. I don't know if I can survive losing someone like that again. Harper turned to face him, her expression serious. You think I'm not scared? I've never had what you had with Maria. Never let anyone that close. My whole life has been about control, about winning, about being untouchable. But you touched me anyway. You got past every defense I had. You got past mine too. Then maybe that's enough. Maybe we don't need guarantees or promises of forever. Maybe we just need right now and tomorrow, and the day after that. One round at a time. Like a fight. Like everything worth doing. Colton stood up, went inside, and came back with something in his hand. It was a simple ring, white gold with a small diamond. This was Maria's mother's, he said. Maria wore it until she told me to give it to someone who would understand that love isn't about perfect safety. It's about choosing to risk everything for something extraordinary. Harper looked at the ring, then at Colton. Are you asking? I'm asking. Harper Lane, will you marry me? Not because we're basically married already. Not because my son is already calling you stepmom, but because you're the only person I want in my corner for whatever fights are coming. Yes, she said simply, letting him slide the ring onto her finger. But I have conditions. Of course you do. The wedding is at the foundation. Our kids train as ring bearers, all of them, every kid in the program who wants to participate. And Jimmy Reeves is your best man. Jimmy, you saved his life. He's walking again because you inspired him to try the new prosthetics. That circle needs to close. Who's your maid of honor, Seth? Evan. He's not a maid. Then he'll be my person of honor. He's the one who kept telling me his dad was clueless, and I needed to make a move. They kissed on the fire escape, the city spread below them like a glittering promise. Inside, unknown to them, Evan watched from his bedroom window, smiling. He pulled out his mother's journal, turned to a blank page, and wrote, Mom, Dad found her. The one you said would come. She's everything you said. She'd be strong enough to stand with him, brave enough to fight beside him, smart enough to see through his walls. I think you would have liked her. I think you would have been friends. And I think you'd be happy that we're a family again, different from before, but whole. The next morning brought chaos. The names Marcus had revealed had leaked to the press, and the circuit was retaliating. 3 foundation locations received bomb threats. A drive-by shooting targeted the New York gym, though no one was hurt. Harper's car was vandalized with a simple message, stop or burn. They're scared, Harper said, surveying the damage. Good. This is escalating, Ray warned. Maybe we should back off, let the feds handle it. The feds have been handling it for years, Colton replied. Nothing changed until we started pushing. What do you want to do? Victor asked. He'd become the Foundation's head of security, his past making him uniquely qualified to anticipate threats. We push harder, Harper said. I'm calling a press conference, every major outlet. That's painting a bigger target. That's the point. They want to operate in shadows. We drag them into the light. The press conference was held at the Foundation with dozens of young fighters standing behind them as Harper and Colton spoke. The visual was powerful, 2 champions protecting the next generation. The circuit thinks they can intimidate us, Harper said into the microphones. They think violence will make us back down. They're wrong. Every threat they make, every attack they attempt, only proves why our work is necessary. We're not just fighting for better regulations, Colton added. We're fighting for every kid who's been told their only value is in their fists. We're fighting for every veteran who's been exploited because they know how to fight. We're fighting for the soul of combat sports. Mr. Hayes, a reporter called out, aren't you afraid for your family? Colton looked at Harper, at Evan, who stood with the other students at the community they'd built. I've been afraid my whole life, he said. Afraid of my past, afraid of being discovered, afraid of letting people down. But fear is just another opponent, and like any opponent, you can either run from it or face it. We're done running. That night, as they increased security at all their locations, an unexpected visitor arrived. Jimmy Reeves, walking on his advanced prosthetics with increasing confidence, brought someone with him, a woman in her 60s, well-dressed, but with the weathered look of someone who'd lived through hardship. Colton, Jimmy said, "This is Margaret Chen. She has something you need to hear." Margaret Chen sat down, pulled out a folder, thick with documents. "My husband was one of the original founders of the circuit. He died 5 years ago, but not before telling me everything. I've been waiting for someone brave enough to stand up to them." She spread the documents on the table, financial records, meeting minutes, even photographs. "This goes back 30 years, she said. "My husband started it as a way to settle disputes between criminal organizations without wars, but it evolved into something monstrous. Fight slavery, essentially. Young men and women owned by syndicates fighting for their owners' profit." "Why come forward now, Sim?" Harper asked. "Because I have terminal cancer. 3 months, maybe 4. I want to die with a clear conscience." She looked at Colton. "And because I remember you. My husband had video of all your fights. He said you were the one that got away, the ghost who disappeared before they could claim you. They were trying to recruit me, own you. There was a bidding war after your 5th professional fight. But then the Jimmy Reeves incident happened and you vanished. My husband was furious, said you cost him millions." "Good," Colton said flatly. Margaret smiled. "Yes, good. But now they're coming for you again. The circuit doesn't like loose ends, and you've become more than that. You've become a threat to their entire operation." "Then we'd better make sure we win," Harper said. Over the next week, they worked with federal prosecutors to build cases against circuit members. Margaret Chen's documents were a roadmap to decades of crime. But the circuit wasn't passive. They struck back hard. Victor was attacked outside his apartment, managing to fight off 3 assailants but ending up hospitalized with a broken arm and concussion. 2 foundation gyms were torched in the night. And then came the personal blow. Evan's school received a credible threat that forced them to send all students home. "They're trying to isolate us," Harper said, pacing the apartment where they'd all gathered for safety. "Make us afraid to leave, afraid to continue." "It's working," Evan said quietly. "Kids are scared to come to the foundation. Parents are pulling them out of programs." "Then we need to hit back," Colton said. "But not with violence. That's their game." "What do you suggest?" Colton pulled out his phone, made a call. "General Morrison, it's time for that favor you offered." Within 24 hours, the Foundation had new protection off-duty military personnel veterans who believed in their mission. The circuit had expected them to fold under pressure. Instead, they expanded. "We're opening 10 new locations," Harper announced at another press conference, this time with General Morrison and several congressmen standing beside them. "Every threat against us results in us growing stronger. Every attack proves why we're necessary." The circuit's response came that night. Not through violence this time, but through a message delivered by a well-dressed lawyer who appeared at their door. "My clients wish to propose a meeting," he said, handing over an envelope. "Neutral ground. They want to discuss terms." "Terms of surrender?" Harper asked. "Terms of coexistence. They recognize that you've won the public relations battle. They're willing to make concessions." "We don't negotiate with criminals," Colton said. "Everyone negotiates eventually, Mr. Hayes. The question is whether you do it before or after more people get hurt." The lawyer looked pointedly at Evan. "Young people especially." After he left, they debated late into the night. "It could be a trap," Victor said, his arm still in a sling. "Everything's a trap," Ray countered. "But sometimes you spring it anyway just to see what happens." "I say we go," Jimmy said. "But we go prepared. Wired for sound backup, ready, everything documented." "It's too dangerous," Colton said, looking at Harper. "I won't risk—" "You won't risk me," Harper interrupted. "I'm not Maria Colton. I'm not fragile. I'm your partner in this and everything else. We go together or not at all." The meeting was set for neutral ground, a conference room in a Manhattan hotel, lawyers present on both sides. The circuit sent 3 representatives, all men in expensive suits who looked like they'd never thrown a punch, but had ordered plenty of them thrown. "Mr. Hayes, Ms. Lane," the lead representative, introducing himself only as Smith, began. "You've caused significant disruption to long-standing business arrangements." "Criminal arrangements," Harper corrected. "That's a matter of perspective. What we propose is simple. You continue your foundation, your reforms, your crusade for fighter safety. We even support it publicly. In exchange, you stop investigating historical matters. Let the past be the past." "And the fighters you own?" Colton asked. "We transitioned to legitimate management contracts over 5 years. Everyone goes legal above board. You get what you want, fighter protection. We get what we want, continued profit, albeit reduced." "What about the people you've killed?" Colton's voice was ice. "Tommy Suarez and dozens of others. Regrettable losses in a dangerous sport. But going forward with your oversight, such incidents would cease." Harper leaned forward. "You're asking us to let you walk away from murder. We're offering you victory without war. Take the win, Ms. Lane. It's more than most reformers ever achieve." They were silent for a moment. Then Colton stood up. "No. No deals, no compromise, no coexistence with murderers and slavers." He looked at each of them in turn. "You're done. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Every document Margaret Chen gave us is being copied and distributed. Every crime you've committed is being investigated. Every fighter you've exploited is being offered sanctuary." "You're making a mistake," Smith said, his veneer of civility cracking. "We have resources you can't imagine, power you can't fight." "Maybe," Harper said, standing beside Colton, "but we have something you don't." "And what's that?" "Nothing left to lose and everything to fight for." They walked out together knowing they'd just declared war on an enemy that had operated with impunity for decades. But as they emerged onto the street, they found something unexpected. Hundreds of fighters, young and old, standing in silent support. Word had spread about the meeting, and the fighting community had come to show they stood with the Foundation. "You see that?" Harper said, taking Colton's hand. "That's an army." "That's a family," Colton corrected. That night, as they prepared for whatever retaliation might come, Evan found them in the gym working the bags side by side. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. "Both of you. Mom would be too." "You think we did the right thing?" Colton asked. "Refusing their deal." "I think you did the only thing you could and still be who you are," Evan replied. "Heroes don't compromise with villains, they beat them." "This isn't a comic book, son. The villains here have real power." "So do you. You have each other. You have all of us." He gestured to the gym full of fighters training, preparing. "And you have the truth. Mom always said the truth was the strongest weapon if you're brave enough to use it." 3 days later, the circuit made their move. But it wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of violence, they used the legal system. Lawsuits were filed against the Foundation claiming defamation, interference with business, even assault from the warehouse incident. Harper's corporate position was challenged by shareholders who'd been influenced or bought. Colton found himself under investigation for his military service classified operations, suddenly under scrutiny. "They're trying to bury us in paper instead of bodies," Harper said, surrounded by legal documents. "It might work," their lawyer admitted. "These cases could take years to resolve, drain your resources, destroy your credibility." "Then we need to change the game," Colton said. He looked at Harper. "Remember what you said about controlling the narrative. What are you thinking? Something dramatic, something they won't expect, something that makes their lawsuits irrelevant." He pulled out his phone, made a call. "Sarah, it's Colton Hayes. That documentary you wanted to expand? How quickly can you get a crew here?" Within hours, Sarah Kim and her team were at the Foundation cameras rolling. But this wasn't just about Colton's story anymore. It was about the circuit, the corruption, the systematic exploitation of fighters spanning decades. "We're going live," Sarah said, "streaming everything as we film it. No editing, no chance for them to suppress it." Fighters began arriving one by one, telling their stories on camera. Men and women who'd been owned, traded, forced to fight injured or drugged. Parents of fighters who'd died in rigged matches. Officials who'd been threatened into compliance. The stream went viral within minutes. Millions watched as the truth poured out, unfiltered and undeniable. Harper used her corporate connections to ensure major media picked it up. General Morrison appeared on screen confirming the military connections to the circuit. But the most powerful moment came when Jimmy Reeves wheeled himself in front of the camera. He'd deliberately chosen the wheelchair over his prosthetics for this. 12 years ago, I nearly died in a boxing ring because my coach pumped me full of drugs and sent me out to be slaughtered for money he said clearly. The only reason I'm alive is because Colton Hayes chose to save my life in the only way he could, knowing it would destroy his career. He's been paying for my survival ever since. It's time that debt was cleared. The stream continued for 12 hours straight. By the end, the circuit's lawsuits were meaningless. Public opinion had turned into a tidal wave. Prosecutors who'd been hesitant now had political cover to act. Arrests began within days. Smith, the circuit's representative, was taken into custody at his country club. Others fled the country. Some facing life in prison began cooperating with authorities, revealing even deeper layers of corruption. A month later, Colton stood in the rebuilt gym watching Evan teaching a class of younger students. The boy had become an instructor, passing on not just techniques but philosophy, that strength meant protection, not domination. "He's good," Harper said, joining him. "Natural teacher like his father. Like his stepmother, too. You handled those corporate sharks trying to oust you like a champion. They never stood a chance. Hard to argue with a CEO whose company stock has risen 40% due to positive publicity from her reform efforts. So we won. This round, there'll be others. The circuit is broken, but there'll always be people trying to exploit fighters. The work doesn't end." "I'm okay with that," Colton said. "Fighting the good fight for the rest of my life with you. That sounds like victory to me." "Speaking of the rest of our lives," Harper said, "we should probably actually plan this wedding Evan's been telling everyone about." "Simple ceremony." Harper laughed. "Have you met me? I want the works. Every fighter we've helped, every kid in the program, everyone who stood with us. We're going to show the world what victory looks like. That could be hundreds of people. Thousands if I have my way." She kissed him. "We spent so long fighting each other, then fighting together. Now I want to celebrate together." The wedding took place 3 months later in the foundation's main gym, transformed into something magical. Lights strung like stars, the ring converted into an altar, hundreds of chairs filled with fighters, families, supporters, and surprisingly, some former enemies who'd chosen redemption over resistance. Victor stood as one of Colton's groomsmen, his scarred face showing a rare smile. Ray Martinez officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this. Jimmy Reeves gave a best man speech that had everyone in tears talking about second chances and the courage to save someone even when it costs everything. But the moment that everyone remembered was when Evan stood to give his speech as Harper's person of honor. 3 years ago, my dad was invisible. He chose to be nobody to protect me from his past. Then Harper saw him. Really saw him and refused to let him hide. She fought him, challenged him, and finally stood beside him. My mom once wrote that Dad would find someone strong enough to stand with him while he fixed himself. She was right. Harper. Thank you for bringing my dad back to life. Dad, thank you for being brave enough to let her. And Mom, wherever you are, thank you for believing this day would come. As Colton and Harper exchanged vows in the ring where they'd first fought, surrounded by people they'd saved and who'd saved them in return, the transformation was complete. The ghost was gone, but what had emerged was something more powerful. A man who'd faced his past, a woman who'd found her match, and a family forged in conflict but sustained by love. "You may kiss the bride," Ray announced. They did, and the gym erupted in cheers that could be heard blocks away. As they walked back down the aisle, Harper whispered in Colton's ear, "Ready for the next fight." "With you," he replied. "Always." The reception was held in the courtyard they'd built behind the foundation under stars and strings of lights. Fighters sparred in exhibition matches, kids performed demonstrations, and stories were shared of lives changed by the Second Chance Foundation. As the evening wound down, Colton found himself on the roof, where so many important moments had happened. Harper joined him, still in her wedding dress, but having traded her heels for boxing boots. "No regrets?" she asked, echoing her question from months ago. "None. You? Just one. I wish we'd found each other sooner. We found each other when we were ready, when we could see past the fight to what really mattered. And what's that? Connection, purpose, love." He pulled her close. "The understanding that we're stronger together than apart." "The Ghost and the Hurricane," Harper mused. "Sounds like a bad superhero movie. Or a great love story. Our love story." They stood there looking out over the city, over the foundation they'd built, the community they'd created, the future they'd fight for together. Below, music still played, laughter still echoed, and fighters still trained not for violence or money, but for the discipline and strength that would carry them through whatever battles life brought. "Your mom was right," Harper said suddenly. "About what?" "In her journal. She wrote that you'd find your way back to the light, that someone would help you get there. She was usually right about things. Think she knew it would be like this, that you'd go from janitor to warrior to reformer to husband again?" Colton thought about Maria, about her unwavering faith even as cancer took her strength, about her insistence that he keep fighting, keep protecting, keep believing in second chances. "I think she knew I'd find my way," he said, "and that I'd find someone who wouldn't let me give up, someone who'd fight beside me, not just for me. Then I hope I'm living up to her expectations." "You're exceeding them," Colton said. "We both are." As they headed back down to their wedding reception, to their son, to their community, to their future, Colton realized the truth of his words. They had exceeded every expectation, their own, others, even fates. Two fighters who'd found in each other not an opponent to defeat, but a partner to stand with against whatever came next. The ghost was truly dead. But Colton Hayes, husband, father, teacher, protector, and fighter for justice, was fully, brilliantly, defiantly alive. And beside him stood Harper Lane, wife, mentor, warrior, and CEO, equally alive and ready for whatever battle came next. Together they descended back into the light and laughter, into the family they'd built from conflict and redemption, ready to face tomorrow's fights with today's hard-won peace. The foundation stood strong beneath them, a testament to the power of second chances, and the truth that sometimes the best partners are the ones who start as opponents because they know each other's strengths and weaknesses and choose to stand together anyway. The music played on, fighters danced where they once would have fought, and in the center of it all, a 13-year-old boy watched his father and new stepmother lead their community in celebration. Knowing that his mother's last wish had been fulfilled, his father had found his way back to the light, and he hadn't traveled alone.